Sports presents to you the most unique show in sports.
I'm going to say something now that some may take as a hot take, and I don't really care because I know that I'm right.
A show so staggeringly awesome and unapologetically original, you won't know what hit you.
Do you ever just get down on your knees and thank God that you know me and have access to my dementia?
Featuring the man himself, Nick Costos.
For anyone else who says, oh, he's exaggerating, he's prisoner of the moment. First off, shut up. This is the National Football League. This is not the Big 12. It's not Pop Warner. An absolute disgrace. An atrocity. An affront. One of the most disgraceful performances that I have ever seen in 35 years watching National Football League football.
This is You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
What's up, everybody? Happy and merry, phenomenal Football Friday to you and yours. This is You Better You Bet with Nick Costos on Westwood One Sports as we bring you the fastest show in all of sports. The show presented today and always by BetMGM. Make it legendary by downloading the BetMGM app and visiting BetMGM.com. And before we get to all the sports, allow me to say to all of you, the real ones, the listeners of You Better You Bet, our viewers on You Better You Bet, and very much appreciate all the comments in the YouTube chat and the Twitch chat. A lot more of that coming as we move into 2026. A lot more audience interactivity than we've had in the past. Looking very much forward to that. Allow me to wish everybody, including the haters and the losers, I was going to say of which there are many, but there actually aren't, would like to wish everybody a very, very happy new year. I hope for you what I hope for me and my family, which is health, happiness, and success in this, the year of our Lord, 2026. Awesome to be back with you here today on this Friday after a couple days off for the holiday. Thanks to Chris Mack. Thank you to Jared Smith for filling in over the last couple days. Now, unfortunately for me, I am about, and I'm trying not to exaggerate here. I actually don't think this is an exaggeration. I'm about 17 pounds heavier today than I was on Tuesday. And that is thanks to the combination of Surfsides. Oh, let me tell you something. Those vodka iced tea drinks with no carbonation, absolutely sensational. A bunch of slices of pepperoni pizza, a cinnamon roll here, a piece of chocolate bread there, some Chinese food yesterday on New Year's Day. Oh, man. I looked at myself in the mirror this morning and I was flat out disgusted. Just disgusted with myself. Hopefully that is not the same for you and yours. I look forward to going to the gym a little later today and fighting with other fat slobs to get on an elliptical to try and burn off the calories that I consumed over the last couple days. So a very, very, very happy new year to everybody. I think this year is going to kick ass on the show. And as always, the year will kick ass in the world of sports. And the world of sports today, on this Friday, phenomenal Football Friday, is absolutely percolating with storylines. And we're going to get to all of them, including my early thoughts and bets for the semifinal rounds of the college football playoff. I'm going to hit you with my thoughts on both games, and I'm going to tell you right now, I've got at least one outright upset winner coming up in the next round. Indiana favored against Oregon, Miami favored against Ole Miss. Also, allow me to sing for the first time in 2026. How does it feel to fire me like you do? A Black Monday, you get that one, man. You are a real one. Black Monday preview is on the way in the National Football League. We're going to go through the NFL teams, and perhaps you are a fan of one of these teams, dear listener and dear viewer. We'll go through the teams that I think could fire their head coach following Week 18, and I will give you all my predictions for how it's going to play out Monday into next week as far as coaches go in the National Football League. We will also preview all the big games this weekend, Week 18, final regular season week in the National Football League. Niners and Seahawks, Bucks and the Panthers coming up tomorrow. the Ravens and the Steelers on Sunday Night Football, and more. All my thoughts on those games, bets that I've got on those games, all the breakdown of Week 18 is on the way. And we will close the show, as always, with our bets for tonight in the world of sports. I love the NBA card tonight. I think we have a couple really interesting spots to bet in the NBA. Even have a couple college basketball thoughts. Like really good college basketball slate tonight on a Friday, including Michigan State and Nebraska. That's going to be a great one. And Michigan, more than a 3-touchdown favorite. It's basketball against USC. All of that will close the show. But we begin. Phenomenal Football Friday edition of You Better You Bet with the best game of 2026. And yeah, we're only one day into the year. But what a phenomenal game it was last night. To paraphrase, I don't know if this is like women say this or just like young people say it. If you can't handle me at my Oregon, Texas Tech, then you don't deserve me at my Ole Miss, Georgia. I'm 42 years old. Probably too old to be saying that, but there you go. An instant classic last night in the Sugar Bowl as Ole Miss wins. Not quite at the gun, but close enough. Take a listen.
47 yards. And it is good! Right down the middle!
Ole Miss, 37. Georgia, 34. One of the best college football games, playoff or otherwise, in recent memory. One of those games where, as you're watching it, you're feeling it in the moment, right? And I'm guessing you, the listener, you, the viewer, you agree. You were watching this game last night, and you felt it in the moment. You felt it as the game moved on, the gravity of the moment, the significance of the moment, and how awesome a sporting event and spectacle this was on New Year's night. As Ole Miss comes from behind to win and upset Kirby Smart, Kirby Dumb, we'll get to him in a little bit, and the Georgia Bulldogs. So many layers to peel back from this game. Like an onion. Except the only way you're going to cry because of this onion is if you're a Georgia fan, or if you bet on Georgia, or if you had Georgia to win the national championship, because Georgia is out. And maybe you're crying if you're Lane Kiffin, who, decided to take in the LSU women's basketball game. They lost on a buzzer beater to Kentucky instead of going to support Ole Miss, but that is a story for another time for our friend Lane Kiffin. And I actually feel compelled, we will get to everything that happened on the field in the game, to start with the broadcast. And Kenny Henderson just played you the highlight from ESPN Sean McDonough with the call of Lucas Carnero, who looks like a combination of like Adam Vinatieri and Brandon Aubrey. The guys are unbelievable. That guy's going to be kicking on Sundays. There's no question. That's an NFL kicker right there, Lucas Carnero. Sean McDonough, who is hashtag friend of the show. He's come on the show like 5 times in the last calendar year. So yes, like I am, and I will admit this, a little bit biased towards him because of that. But there can be no denying this was an A++ call by Sean McDonough, where McDonough and Greg McElroy and the crew took a great game and elevated it and made it even better. And that is what great broadcasters can do. Take a sporting event that's already great and add a little bit more juice to the proceedings. McDonough was on fire. He was fantastic. He was on top of it, displayed the emotion. 10 out of 10 call for me for Sean McDonough yesterday. The Fowler-Herbstreit call of the Indiana-Alabama game for me was also a 10 out of 10, but for very different reasons. We'll get to that coming up later this hour. We'll start at the beginning because this game was noteworthy basically from start to finish. So Lucas Carnero, who's Ole Miss's kicker, who came over from Western Kentucky, maybe like the best signing of the entire NIL, the portal for Ole Miss last year, bangs him home from 55 and 56 to start the game, and Ole Miss takes a 6-0 lead. And I did have money on Ole Miss. I also had the under, which was the DOA of the 37-34, the final score in the game. But I had Ole Miss in the game, and I felt like Ole Miss could potentially win the game, and I've been saying as much for a couple weeks. I don't know why, and maybe you, the person watching, and you, the person listening, maybe you'll agree with me on this. Whenever I see 6-0 early in a game on 2 field goals, I instantly get worried for the team that's ahead. And I think, candidly, the reason why is the 2014 NFC Championship game with the Packers and the Seahawks in Seattle, which is the Brandon Bostic game, and the epic Green Bay collapse, Jermaine Kearse in overtime to send the Seahawks to the Super Bowl, where they would lose to the New England Patriots. Green Bay had the Carnero had 2 long field goals. Mike McCarthy settled for 2 field goals early in that NFC Championship game, and I remember thinking, I think the Packers are going to lose. Like, you can't be settling for field goals early in a game of this magnitude. Now, this wasn't that, because they were long field goals by Carnero, but I couldn't help but think in that moment, man, like, Ole Miss is probably going to need some touchdowns here. I don't know if field goals are going to get the job done. But great job by Carnero, obviously, to make those kicks, and he obviously made the game winner. He is one of the stars of last night's game. Georgia, as you would expect at that point, because Ole Miss looks great early on. They take the 6-0 lead. Georgia obviously fights back. You don't think Georgia's going to go quietly into the night. Gunnar Stockton, a couple touchdown runs, gives Georgia the lead in the first half. And Gunnar Stockton might not have been the best quarterback on the field last night, and we will get to the guy that was the best quarterback on the field last night, Trinidad Chambliss. But we do need to say this about Gunnar Stockton. He's a tough son of a bitch. He took some hits in this game where I'm watching thinking, like, he's not coming back in. He got waylaid in the first half and then immediately rushed up to the line for a quarterback sneak touchdown. Like, what? This is a tough SOB, man. So, like, no, he's not as good as Trinidad Chambliss. I don't even mean that as an insult. But Gunnar Stockton played well in this game. He is not the reason Georgia lost the game last night. I thought he was great. I thought he was tough. And he was nails in the big moments. Not his fault that Kirby Smart couldn't manage the end of the game situation and left too much time for Ole Miss before Ole Miss's drive to kick the field goal to win the game. So I'm curious, for everyone watching and listening to the show right now, if you had the same experience that I did late in the first half, where Georgia is up 14-12 and Ole Miss has the ball. And Lacey, who returns from injury for Ole Miss, one of the stud running backs, fumbles, and Georgia brings it back for a score. And at that moment, Georgia's up by 9. It's 21-12. They had been down 6-0, so they're on a 21-3 run, or a 21-6 run, excuse me. And in that moment, I'm thinking, yeah, like, I think it's probably Georgia's game at this point now. I think Georgia's probably got this one. And Ole Miss has the drive at the end of the first half to try and put some points on the board, and maybe it's going to be a field goal, but you want to get some points there, obviously, heading into the second half. And Ole Miss absolutely screws this up to an unbelievable degree. And you can blame, the receiver who stays in bounds instead of going out of bounds. I did appreciate Sean McDonough throwing Joe Judge under the bus. As a diehard New York Giants fan, I always love when Joe Judge gets criticized by members of the media. As Ole Miss completely blew that, missing a chance to get some points at the end of the first half, and the camera pans in on Joe Judge, and Sean McDonough is saying Joe Judge is in charge of the offense, and you can't have this happen. And in that moment, I'm thinking, like, it's done. Like, the game's over. Ole Miss had their chance. They were up early, had a chance to be up by more. Fumble going the other way for a touchdown for Georgia. Chance for points at the end of the first half. You walk away with nothing because you butcher this end of half situation. And I'm thinking, man, it's Pete Golding and Joe Judge on one side and Kirby Smart on the other. And the game's probably done. And Georgia's going to win, and Georgia's going to advance to the next round, and we're going to see the Carson Beck Bowl, Georgia against Miami. And then the second half starts. And I really felt like Georgia had an opportunity early in the second half to put this game away. Where Georgia scores a touchdown and goes up 28-12, I think the game's probably just done at that point. And they get 0 points on their first 2 possessions. And on the second possession, Ole Miss goes for it on a 4th down near midfield. They don't get it. Georgia takes over at Ole Miss territory and gets nothing on the drive and misses a long field goal. So Georgia absolutely had their chances. The Bulldogs had their chance to blow this game open and really seize control and failed to do it. And then the hero stepped up. The MVP of the Sugar Bowl. The best player on the field. Trinidad Chambliss. Gold all on his chain. Gold all on his ring. Gold all on his watch. Don't believe him? Just watch. Trinidad Chambliss, engineered a drive, going from right to left on your television screen. Multiple plays in a row, looking like, and I actually think I saw some people tweet this, and it's so funny, like the collective experience that we have as sports fans. Because I'm watching Trinidad Chambliss run around behind the line of scrimmage, evading would-be Georgia defenders, and just throwing strikes down the field to open receivers or contested receivers. And if you're of a certain age, and you enjoy football video games, Madden, most notably, I wonder if you were thinking he looked like Michael Vick in Madden 2004, which is the greatest football video game ever made, Madden 2004, the Michael Vick year where he's on the Falcons and is on the cover of the game. That's what Trinidad Chambliss looked like. This looked like it was a video game. Like this was not real life. Where Chambliss decided not just, I'm going to take this game over and I'm going to win the game for my team. It was in that moment where almost like he decided, this is my game. Like the game is now about me. And people are going to talk about me. To the degree that it didn't just become, oh my God, Trinidad Chambliss is the best player on the field in this game, but it became, if Trinidad Chambliss declares for the NFL draft, is he going to be the first overall pick? Arch Manning, just as a side note, was really good for Texas in their bowl game win against Michigan. I wonder if Arch came out, what that situation would be. I'll tell you what, I think there's a chance that Trinidad and Arch would be the first two quarterbacks, not Fernando Mendoza and Dante Moore, with respect to those two quarterbacks. That's what it felt like. Like, is Chambliss going to be the first overall pick in the NFL draft? That's how good this was. That's how special it was. And you can't undersell it. You can't even oversell it. Like, it was so good that everyone kind of stops what they're doing, and it doesn't even become about the game. It becomes about him and how amazing he was. So Ole Miss scores 24-19. And here's where you get the first huge Kirby Smart, Kirby dumb blunder of the game. So it's 24-19. Ole Miss obviously has momentum at this point. And I'm curious, because, Kirby would never come out and say this. It kind of felt like to me, and I'm not in his head, right? It kind of felt like to me in that moment, Kirby kind of knew, like, oh bleep. Like, we are in significant trouble here. Like, I don't know if we can stop this guy. Kind of had that feeling where this is just like it's a video game, right? And the difficulty's just been lowered to rookie. And he's going to do whatever he wants. Georgia faces a 4th and 2 on their own 33. And they go for it. And Gunnar Stockton gets sacked and he fumbles and Ole Miss falls on the ball. 2 plays later, Chambliss touchdown pass, 13th consecutive completion. Ole Miss takes a 10-point lead, 34-20. Now, if you've listened to or watched me for any period of time, whether on the old time slot on You Bet or You Bet, any content I've ever done on socials at the Costos, THEKOS, TOS on Twitter and Instagram, you know that I generally skew towards wanting coaches to be aggressive in moments like this. To go for it on 4th down. To go for 7 instead of 3 in certain situations. I will always skew towards aggression. Unless it's patently and plainly obvious that conservatism is the way to go. In that moment, and it doesn't matter that they didn't get it. It's a first guess. I'm watching, and Georgia's offense is on the field, and I'm thinking, like, there's no way you can go for this. You can't. Because if you don't get it, like, Ole Miss is going to score. And maybe your argument is, well, Ole Miss is going to score anyway. Great. Like, let them go the length of the field to score. Don't hand them a free touchdown. Don't hand them a short field where Chambliss goes 2 plays, 23 yards, and all of a sudden you're down by double digits. I hated that from Kirby Smart. I despised it from Kirby Smart. And it's not just because they didn't get it. They could have gotten it, and I would have hated the call. I thought it was reckless. I thought it was irresponsible. And to use a betting term, Kirby Smart was on tilt. He was tilting his face off in that moment. And, I guess you can't really blame him because, he's got this defense and Chambliss is making them look silly. And maybe he's just like, man, we're screwed here. Kind of like Belichick on the 4th and 2 against Peyton Manning. He's probably like, Peyton's going to score. Might as well go for it. That's a little different, I think. That's Peyton Manning in the NFL. This is Trinidad Chambliss in college. Had to punt the ball there. Awful decision by Kirby Smart. So now it's 34-24. Oh my God, Georgia's going to lose. But Georgia's got the heart of a champion. And Kirby has got a great program, even if I thought he was brutal in this game. And he coached a brutal game for Georgia. Georgia goes right down the field, aided by some questionable, and the officiating was absolutely miserable. Miserable in this game. More on that coming up in a few moments. Georgia scores 34-31. And now it's getting really exciting. And Ole Miss goes 3 and out. Again, that's why you punt, right? At 24, that is why you punt at that point, right? That's why you punt. That's why Georgia should have punted, because they actually got a 3 and out. Georgia gets the ball back, marches down the field, get into goal-to-go territory. And here is where Kirby Smart becomes Kirby dumb. 3rd and goal. You either win the game or you go to overtime if you bleed the clock all the way. Georgia calls a pass. Incomplete. Clock stops. What the hell are you doing? This is one where I've said sometimes you can take a stoned college kid playing Madden with Cheeto dust on his fingers. Maybe that was me once upon a time. Maybe it was me not that long ago, honestly. And the game management would be better than what some of the college and NFL head coaches do. The fact that Georgia doesn't take the clock all the way down and kick the field, leave Ole Miss no time to potentially win the game in regulation is unforgivable. It makes 0.0% sense that this is what Kirby Smart decided to do. No sense at all. 0. So Georgia ties the game. And you leave Trinidad Chambliss 56 seconds, and Trinidad Chambliss was the best player on the field, so what do you know? On a 3rd down, a ridiculous scramble and a 40-yard strike, and Georgia calls basically an all-out blitz. The one thing you can't do is let a receiver get behind you. Stribley catches at 40 yards. Ole Miss is in field goal range. And they've got the love child of Vinatieri and Aubrey, and it's basically game over at that point. 47 yards, Lucas Carnero, boom, right down the middle. Ole Miss 37, Georgia 34. And then you had the insane stuff at the end of the game with leaving a second on the clock and the onside kick, and Georgia recovers and they do the pitchy woo woo at the end of the game. And it's 39-34. And if Georgia had scored on that play, I actually think, I don't know if we'd be playing sports today. I think the world may have hurtled off its axis and into the sun, and we would have all perished in that moment. If Georgia, it would have been the biggest miscarriage of justice since Ric Flair lost the WWF title to Macho Man Randy Savage at WrestleMania 8 at the Hoosier Dome in 1992. It would have been brutal if that's what had happened. Thankfully, it's not what happened, and justice was served, and Ole Miss won the game. But I'll tell you, this officiating, and I don't think games are rigged, and I'm not trying to say that. This was as one-sided for Georgia as it could possibly get down the stretch of this game. A clear missed face mask on Georgia, a horrible defensive pass interference, and then the extending of this game for an extra 10 minutes of real time. Insane by these officials. Absolutely terrible. But Ole Miss wins. 37-34. Trinidad Chambliss, MVP. And let's call a spade a spade. Pete Golding and Joe Judge. I'll group Joe Judge. I'll give him some credit. They won the game, right? Outcoach Kirby Smart. Imagine that. The defensive coordinator who got a haircut. Looks pretty good. We're calling for him to get a haircut. It looks good now, Pete Golding. The defensive coordinator who got the job because Lane Kiffin left for LSU. Outcoached one of the best college coaches of this century and a multiple-time national champion in Kirby Smart. What's the argument against what I just said? That Pete Golding and his staff outcoached Kirby Smart and his. Crazy. And Lane Kiffin's watching the LSU women's basketball game. Just, you can't make this stuff up. This is Hollywood stuff. And we'll see if Ole Miss can truly make it a Disney ending moving forward. Last note here on that game, and then we will spin it forward to the other 3 games in the quarterfinals in the next segment for the rest of this hour. With this win by Ole Miss last night, and an instant classic, we have a Final Four that feels more like a basketball Final Four than a college football Final Four. Indiana, Oregon, Miami, and Ole Miss. And I absolutely love it. This is why you expand the playoff. So you can get results like this. Think if this were a 4-team playoff, this would have been Ohio State, Indiana, Texas Tech, and Georgia. Could you imagine that? And how much more fun this is? Like bringing more volatility to the proceedings, where we get a little bit of a shakeup with the blue bloods that are always there at the end. And this is not meant to be anti-Ohio. I wanted Ohio State to win. I lost money when Ohio State didn't win. But we don't have Ohio State. We don't have Alabama. We don't have Georgia. And that's okay, right? Because this is great. This is what we wanted. This is why the 12-team playoff rules and why I think it should expand even more. I want it to go to 16. I can't wait for this next week, next Thursday night and next Friday night. The semifinals with these 4 schools. This absolutely kicks ass. And I think this is going to be the cherry on top of the delicious sundae that is one of the best college football seasons of my lifetime. We are just getting started here on a phenomenal Football Friday, you better you bet, on Westwood One Sports. On the other side, we're going to recap the other 3 games from the quarterfinal round. We will talk about the snooze fest. That was Oregon and Texas Tech. I've got to take on Ohio State, Miami. That'll probably piss some people off. But we will begin with Indiana's emasculation of Alabama and what it means moving forward for Kurt Signetti. You better you bet on a Friday. Nick Costos, Westwood One Sports.
We'll be right back with You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports.
Here's the snap back to Fernando. Has time rolling over the middle. He's got Becker. Oh, what a catch! Charlie Becker! Touchdown, Indiana! Tremendous throw by Fernando Mendoza, but what a catch by Becker, who had to leap and pull it in.
Now, back to You Better You Bet with Nick Costos on Westwood One Sports.
Westwood One, courtesy of the call there on radio, as Indiana, steals the soul of Alabama, embarrasses Alabama, humiliates Alabama. D, all of the above. 38-3. Wow. I laid the points with Indiana. I thought Indiana could win the game by 10, win the game by 13, 14. I did not expect 38-3, even as someone that liked Indiana to win the game and told you why earlier in the week, because I thought Alabama was going to be one-dimensional and Indiana's a more complete team. I am surprised on the margin of victory and how easy it was for Indiana. And we'll talk about that game in a second, but got some comments in the YouTube chat I want to get to here. And we will start taking phone calls, and we have a text line also, probably next week on the show, but as we move into 2026. But our friend Sports Wager saying it was always Ole Miss. Apparently it was, so Ole Miss won last night. Our friend Anthony Migliore calls Trinidad James, Trinidad Chambliss, Trinidad James is the rapper, Win-a-Dad, all gold everything. And a couple people disagreeing with me on my take that Chambliss looked like Michael Vick in the second half of the game. Obviously, Vick was way faster than Chambliss and had a stronger arm, and he's lefty. I'm not insinuating that they look the same. It's the video game comparison. That it looked like you were playing Michael Vick and Madden back in the day with him evading those rushers. But appreciate all the comments in the YouTube chat. Keep them coming on YouTube and Twitch, and we will keep interacting with you here in the new era of You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports. So as the game is wrapping up last night, the Rose Bowl, I'm thinking about how I want to try and put it into context, like what had just happened. Indiana, an afterthought, a doormat in college football for my entire life. Last had won a bowl game in the 1991 Copper Bowl. Shout out to the Copper Bowl and all the bowls that no longer exist. Indiana hadn't won a bowl since 1991. And Indiana, one of the just deadbeat teams in college football for a long, long time, defeated the preeminent college football program of this generation, embarrassed the preeminent college football program of this generation, and did it not on like a sleepy Saturday in October. Not in Indiana, not in Tuscaloosa. At the granddaddy of them all. At the Rose Bowl. Indiana and Kurt Signetti, to me, Walter White in Breaking Bad. If you never watched Breaking Bad, you should. It's one of the greatest TV shows of all time. Walt is a high school chemistry teacher and works part-time at a car wash. Completely overlooked. Someone who and is evil. We can get that. I'm not saying Kurt Signetti and Indiana are evil, but someone with all this ability and talent percolating, right? And ultimately ends up becoming the kingpin and ends up running the show and ends up bullying the bullies. Kurt Signetti is Heisenberg. Kurt Signetti took a floundering operation and turned it into number one. And did it very, very quickly. Kurt Signetti is the one who knocks. Say their name. You're G-damn right. Unbelievable. 2 years, and Kurt Signetti has taken Indiana to the college football playoff semis, undefeated, number one team in the country, and absolutely emasculated Kalen DeBoer in Alabama in the Rose Bowl. And honestly, like, if you're Alabama, and if you're Kalen DeBoer, would you rather have lost to Oklahoma? Like, just like lose in that game to Oklahoma, like have the comeback and fall short? Would that have been better than this for Alabama? Like, is the seat hotter for DeBoer with the way this went and losing to Indiana, at least Oklahoma has got some pelts on the wall. And Indiana's better than Oklahoma, but I think you understand what I'm saying. This is just, DEFCON 1 right now for Kalen DeBoer, whose seat is like currently the seat's not hot. It's in flames. And now just can he survive into next year? I think he'll be the head coach week 1 next year. But if it starts going poorly, he gonna be out of a job. That's how bad this was. This wasn't like they gave it the good old college try and fell short at the end. No, they got embarrassed. And they got called out for it by the broadcast team, with Herb Street saying, this is embarrassing. With Fowler saying, this is embarrassing. Questioning the fire and the fight and the want to of Alabama. Not some curtain jerk and jabroni program. The Alabama Crimson Tide. And Indiana absolutely stepped on their throat. Unbelievable performance. Unbelievable. This felt like a paradigm shift. Like a brave new world in college football, with Indiana slamming Alabama. And because Indiana won, we got another really awesome post-game snippet from Indiana quarterback, the Heisman Trophy winner, Fernando Mendoza.
Well, first of all, my team and I want to give all the glory to God. What a historic venue, the Rose Bowl, one of the best venues in all of sports. It's just a great conglomerate of individuals coming together and really forming complementary football. Coach Shig has hit on us no complacency, and especially when you have a bye, it's tough to get in the rhythm of football. But once we got our feet on the ground, we knew that we were going to stick together and come out with this W.
You bet on this Friday. Nick Costos here with you. Happy New Year, everybody, on Westwood One Sports. We are presented by BetMGM. Now, Fernando Mendoza's legit, right? That's who Fernando Mendoza is. There's no question that we've seen enough Fernando Mendoza sound and clips over the years to know that he is being himself. This is like if you ask ChatGPT or AI, hey ChatGPT, give me like the best answer that a quarterback could possibly give after a win like this. And that's what you get from Fernando Mendoza, who we think is going to be the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. We'll see what happens if Trinidad Chambliss declares, or even if Arch Manning declares. But great stuff from Indiana, stuffing Alabama into a locker. I liked Indiana in the game. I never thought I'd say that. 38-3. Kurt Signetti, Heisenberg. Indiana, the one who knocks. And Indiana, with Ohio State bounced. We'll talk about Ohio State, Miami to close the hour in a little bit. Indiana is now your favorite to win the national championship. And next Friday night, in the Peach Bowl, Indiana will have a rematch with Oregon from the game they played in Eugene earlier this year. Because Oregon, in the opener yesterday in the Orange Bowl, in one of the worst sporting events I've ever watched. Like usually when a sporting event's bad, like you could turn it off. Like you can't turn off a college football, like, especially for me. I got to talk about these games. And I bet Oregon, so like it should have been like, wow, this is awesome. Oregon just got control of the whole game. The game was miserable. Oregon shuts out Texas Tech 23-0. And honestly, like Texas Tech, you wasted our time. Great. You beat every team in the Big 12 by 22 points or more. Apparently, the Big 12's the worst conference ever because you couldn't even sniff this game. And it's not even like Oregon played great. Oregon, like the final margin of victory, this was like a 2-score game for a long time. Texas Tech couldn't even sniff it. Mike Leach in football heaven is probably looking down watching the Texas Tech's offense like Marlon Brando in The Godfather when Sonny Corleone gets whacked at the toll booth. Look at how they massacred my boy. Look at this offense. It was offensive. So yeah, credit Dante Moore, credit Dan Lanning, credit Oregon. Oregon got the job done. I just like, Texas Tech, go away. I don't want to hear it. Like, you can't get a bye and be like this upstart team with all this new money and perform like that in a big spot. Because it's one thing to lose. It's another thing to waste the time of everybody that's excited to watch these games. And this ain't a group of 5 team. This is Texas Tech. And they were miserable in this game. See you later. See you in September, Texas Tech. Bye. And, of course, credit to the Oregon Ducks. We got one more game we got to hit in the college football playoff quarterfinals, and we will do that on the other side. As Miami on New Year's Eve with the big upset against Ohio State, which made me very sad as someone who was invested in Ohio State to win the national championship. I've got a take on the game that I think is going to piss some people off. I'm excited to share that with everybody. And then I'm going to give you my early thoughts and bets on the college football playoff semifinal and the one outright upset that I have already bet that's coming up next to wrap up hour number 1 here on a Friday.
We'll be right back with You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports.
that's going to see those top seeds go 0-5.
Bain coming. Zane gets the pass away. It's intercepted. Picked off by Lucas.
Now, back to You Better You Bet with Nick Costos and the crew. Presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
BetMGM players will receive an NBA Odds Boost token. To use the token, add a wager made up of NBA bets to your bet slip and activate the token. If you win your wager that was made with the token, you'll receive extra winnings and unrestricted bonus dollars. Download the BetMGM app, visit BetMGM.com, and make it legendary. And at the end of the show, 2 hours from now, I've got a bunch of NBA games that I actually really like for tonight, including one that's contingent on an injury situation. It's early in the morning. It's Trae Young and the Atlanta Hawks visiting my New York Knicks. So I'll give you my thought on that game and a couple others in the NBA, and maybe that's where you want to use your NBA Odds Boost token coming up for tonight. Next hour on the show, we're previewing Black Monday in the NFL, all the coaching situations that you, our listeners and viewers, need to have your eye on, coaches that may keep their jobs, coaches that may be fired, everything that I'm expecting to see, and former NFL and college football head coach Dave Wanstead, our good friend, will join the show as well. Week 18 in the NFL preview coming up in the final hour of the show, 11 a.m. Eastern time. But ESPN's courtesy of the highlight there, coming back from break, is much to my chagrin. Someone who was saying all year that Ohio State was going to win the national championship, and Ohio State was going to go back to back. I was wrong. Now, thank God I got the Dodgers home in the World Series, because otherwise, since Ohio State won the title last year, and I had Ohio State last year, we got the Chiefs, who lost the Super Bowl, Duke, who lost in the Final Four, obviously. It had the Chiefs this year, just no bueno. Really wanted Ohio State to win the game, and they did not. They lose 24-14 to Mario Cristobal, Carson Beck, Ruben Bain, and Miami. Now, I did bet Miami in the game. I thought Miami was going to keep the game close, and Miami got slammed in the betting market prior to the game starting. But I did not expect Miami to win, and certainly win in the fashion that Miami did. So I want to be really careful here with how I say this, because I think this is going to anger people, no matter how I preface this. So I want to say this very clearly. So please hear me, all the listeners and all the viewers. Miami deserved to win the game. Miami deserved to win. Miami was the better team. Miami controlled the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. Ohio State was not like an unlucky loser here. Miami deserved to win. Okay, now I've said that. You better you bet on this Friday. Nick Costos here with you on Westwood One Sports. Now, I will say something that will make people mad. And it doesn't matter at all, but I just want to say it because I have the microphone right now. And I need to be honest about my opinion. This game, to me, felt like Miami-Notre Dame, the first game of the season, where Miami won that game, and I walked out of that game thinking if they played again, Notre Dame would beat Miami. And if they played again, I think Ohio State would win. I do. Now, it doesn't matter. Notre Dame didn't make the playoff. The committee clearly didn't make a mistake with Miami. Miami's in the Final Four. Miami deserved to win. I am not saying that Ohio State got screwed or got jobbed or anything. Miami won the game on the field. I still think Ohio State's the better team. And you may hear that and be like, you're crazy. What an idiot. And we can disagree. Ultimately, it doesn't matter. But that's my opinion, is that Ohio State didn't get it going until the second half for whatever the reason. And once Ohio State kicked it into gear, obviously Ohio State was the better team for the majority of the second half. Miami had the touchdown drive to salt it away and picked off Sayin at the end to salt away a 10-point win. I thought if Ohio State had come out and started better, Ohio State would have won the game. And we could talk about who's to blame. And I thought Ryan Day taking the play calling would really spur Ohio State towards better things and a fast start in the game, and it did not. Bain was great. The defensive front was great. Miami's O-line was really good. Carson Beck was not like as good as like Trinidad Chambliss was, but Carson Beck was good enough to win the game. Like, he deserves a lot of credit. So does Mario Cristobal, who I've criticized a ton. Like, who coached a better game in their respective quarterfinal? Mario Cristobal, who everyone criticizes, including me, or Kirby Smart, who everyone deifies, including me? It's Cristobal. It is. So I give Miami a lot of credit. I still can't believe Ohio State lost. And maybe it is sour grapes for me because I wanted Ohio State to win so I could win bets. Maybe it is a little bit of sour grapes. I cannot believe that Ohio State lost this game. Credit to Miami. I still think Ohio State's better, just like I think Notre Dame's better than Miami. But again, doesn't matter. Miami got the job done, and Miami moves on. And next week, next Thursday night, in the Fiesta Bowl, Miami a 2.5-point favorite against Ole Miss, juice 2.5, 51.5 the total. Next Friday night in the Peach Bowl, Indiana a 3.5-point favorite against Oregon, 46.5 the total. I was texting late last night with our friend Femi Abebefe, and Femi had an opinion that I absolutely agreed with. I do think that Indiana-Oregon in the Peach Bowl next Friday is the national championship game. The winner of that game will win the Natty. I don't know what I want to do yet in that game. Think I like Indiana? Not there yet to make a decision. But I will tell you, in the Fiesta Bowl, I'll take the team with the best player on the field to win and advance to the Natty. Give me Trinidad Chambliss and Ole Miss to beat Miami and advance to the national championship game. Hour 1 done, hour 2 for you. Coming up on the other side, Black Monday preview on the way on a Friday.
We'll be right back with You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports.
biggest names in the business are on You Better You Bet with Nick Costos.
Hey, this is Joe Buck, and you have done it. You have found it. You are listening to You Better You Bet. Great decision.
Hi, this is Kevin Harlan of CBS, Westwood One, and TNT, and I'm listening as you do every day to You Better You Bet with the most handsome single man in the radio business. A man who, if I was not married for 38 years, I might consider myself the kind of guy that can electrify a listening audience and a crowd of bystanders watching him do what he does so well each and every day. Continue to listen right here on You Better You Bet.
This is You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports. Brought to you by BetMGM.
The phenomenal Football Friday edition of You Better You Bet rolls on. Nick Costos here with you on Westwood One Sports. Happy New Year to all the listeners and all the viewers. Great to have you with us here on Westwood One Sports in the year of our Lord, 2026. Keep on firing the comments in on YouTube and on Twitch. We will have a much bigger presence on those two platforms as we move into 2026. Call and text line coming soon as well. We very much look forward to that and appreciate everybody's patronage and sticking with us here on You Better You Bet here on the new time slot. Lots of great messages from a lot of fans, new and old. Appreciate all of you very, very much. First hour of the show dedicated entirely to the college football playoff quarterfinals. Told you why. Trinidad Chambliss, QB1. I think he might be the number one overall pick in the NFL draft if he decides to declare after his performance last night on Thursday night against Georgia, and why Pete Golding outcoached Kirby Smart as Ole Miss pulled the outright upset in an instant classic in the Sugar Bowl. Absolutely loved it as Georgia beats Ole Miss, Ole Miss beats Georgia 37-34 to advance to the semifinal. Compared Indiana and Kurt Signetti to Walter White, Heisenberg in Breaking Bad, and how they've been able to turn this around in short order and turn into an absolute juggernaut, minus the drug dealing and murder for Kurt Signetti in Indiana. As Indiana embarrasses and emasculates Alabama, Indiana, your betting favor right now to win the national championship in college football. What a time to be alive. Texas Tech, you wasted our time. And that is an unforgivable sin. You wasted our time. Great. You won the Big 12, and you won every game by 22 points or more. When you had to step up in class against a real team, you scored as many points as I did yesterday in the Orange Bowl. If you took the number of points that Texas Tech scored and you multiplied it by 1,000,000, you know what it would be? 0. Pathetic from Texas Tech. Get out of my face, Red Raiders. And credit to Dan Lanning, Dante Moore in Oregon, advancing to the semis for a rematch against Kurt Signetti, Fernando Mendoza, and Indiana. And look, I credited Miami to end the hour. Miami advancing to the semis. They are favored against Ole Miss coming up on Thursday night in the Fiesta Bowl. I still think Ohio State's the better team, and it doesn't matter. And maybe it's sour grapes, and I'm crying over spilled milk. That could very well be true. And Miami won, and Miami was the better team. I can't believe that was the Ohio State effort that they put out there on Thursday night in the Cotton Bowl. That is, or on the days are so mixed up because of the midweek holiday. On Wednesday night, I guess, on New Year's Eve in the Cotton Bowl. A terrible first half from Ohio State, leading to the Buckeyes getting bounced. I told you to end the hour. Give me Ole Miss to beat Miami and advance to the national championship game, leaning towards Indiana to beat Oregon. Don't know how I want to bet that game as far as the spread is concerned. Former NFL and college football coach Dave Wanstead will join us in about a half hour to talk about what we saw in the college football playoff quarters and Week 18 in the NFL and extending it out to the NFL postseason. And I'm going to give you my breakdown on all the big games in Week 18, who I expect to win, who I expect to lose, and I have run all my opinions through the playoff predicting machine, and I have my projected wild card weekend with all the point spreads for you. And there are domestic sports books that have these markets up. So I'm going to tell you what I think the most likely scenario is. Here are going to be the matchups on wild card weekend. So me also, and you, our listeners and viewers, so we can get a leg up, get early here on how we want to bet these games and think about these games next weekend in the NFL postseason. Yeah, like the games are going to be exciting coming up Saturday and Sunday. But Monday is a huge day on the NFL calendar as well. No, there is no Monday Night Football game on Monday. But Monday is going to be important because it is Black Monday in the National Football League. And there will be coaches that lose their jobs on Black Monday. And this exercise is not to revel in human beings losing their jobs and families being that's not what this is at all. It is an unfortunate part of life, period, and obviously the NFL, but it is what it is. This is a sports show, and we're going to frame things through the prism of team building and should teams keep coaches? Should they move on? And what are they going to do moving forward? And I love having conversations like these, and I love thinking about this team building, right? Because it gives us a leg up on how we want to think about these teams heading into next season, right? Provided and depending on what they do coming up on Monday and early into next week. So I've compiled a bunch of teams here that I think at the very least could be making head coaching changes following the end of the regular season. And we can talk about the games that those teams will be playing in Week 18 as well. So we'll start with the Bills and the Jets on Sunday in the final game at the Ralph, which I guess they call Highmark Stadium now. It will always be the Ralph to me. As Buffalo, a 6.5-point favorite in the game against Gang Green, total here is 38. Now, the Bills can technically still help their playoff seeding. I don't even know if it matters. They're probably going to play the Patriots, the Jaguars, or the AFC North winner. And honestly, with Baltimore being a favorite at Pittsburgh, we'll get to that game next hour, I kind of think you don't want to be the 5 seed and maybe have to play Baltimore in case the Ravens get on a roll. And I don't even know if Buffalo cares about winning this game. It certainly feels like right now, and we don't have word on this yet, that the Bills will be sitting some of their starters, potentially Josh Allen, chief among them, for this game against the New York Jets, with Buffalo only being a 6.5-point favorite. But this, for right now, is about the Jets, not about the Buffalo Bills. The Jets are 3-13. The Jets will be starting Brady Cook on Sunday. And Brady Cook, and this is not meant to be like a Brady Cook bash session, but look, he's not very good. By any metric, he might be the worst starting quarterback in the NFL this season. So Brady Cook's not very good. I think the Bills could roll out, bring Trent Edwards back. And I think they could probably win this game. J.P. Lossman. Insert Bills. Can Frank Reich make the trip from Stanford? I think the Bills can win this game with a multitude of potential options at quarterback with Brady Cook starting for the Jets, which means the Jets are likely to finish 3-14 in Aaron Glenn's first season in charge. Now, earlier in the year, Aaron Glenn did get a big-time vote of confidence from Jets owner Woody Johnson, who threw at the time, if you remember, Woody Johnson threw starting quarterback Justin Fields under the bus. And Woody Johnson said, basically, if our quarterback could complete the forward pass, I'm paraphrasing, only slightly, then we would see how things would go. And he talks to Aaron Glenn every week and that he has confidence, etc. Things have been made a little bit more interesting by how the Jets season has ended here. Specifically, the way Sunday's game went at home against the New England Patriots. You bet on this Friday. Nick Costos here with you, Westwood One Sports, presented by BetMGM. And I just tell you this as someone who lives in New York and consumes a lot of New York sports content. I have a lot of friends that root for the Jets, diehard Jets fans, right? There was no one in that stadium on Sunday. And the Patriots laid it on them. I think it's good that the Jets lost the game and improved their draft positioning. But if you're the owner of the team, right, you're watching an empty stadium at the end of the year and your team getting booed out of the building against one of your rivals as the quarterback of that team kind of pads his MVP case and becomes the MVP frontrunner. It's not a great look. And by any objective measure, Aaron Glenn has not done a great job this season. I don't know what you could point to and say Aaron Glenn's done well. And look, I didn't think the Jets were going to be good. I said it when they signed Justin Fields. Justin Fields, he's terrible. He seems like a very nice young man, and I'm not saying he can never be good, although I don't think he will be. I think the book's out on him. He's a backup quarterback. And he got a deal to be the starter, and he's not good, and the Jets have no receivers, basically, especially once Garrett Wilson gets hurt. This was never going to go well. And I loved what they did at the trade deadline, getting that war chest of picks with the Sauce Gardner and the Quinnen Williams trade. And I do think, and I said this at the time, the Jets are big time set up for success in the future. But this is a conversation about what's going to happen next week. Is Aaron Glenn going to live to see the rest of this rebuild? I think the answer is yes. Now, I don't have to be right. Let's see how this goes. Do the Bills embarrass them with their backups? Who knows what's going to happen? 3-14. Glenn already fired his defensive coordinator, Steve Wilks. Does he survive? I think yes. I think Woody Johnson and the public commitment to Glenn earlier in the season, he's a former Jet. I think Aaron Glenn will get at least one more year. And candidly, look, it's been bad for Aaron Glenn. I do think he deserves another year. I think anyone, and it's easy to say this now, hindsight's 2020, with the benefit of having the entire season been played. I think the people that looked at the Jets and were like, oh yeah, they could be decent this year. Like, really? Like, really? Like, come on. Come on. With Justin Fields and Tyrod Taylor and like Brady Cook, there's just no way. So I do think Aaron Glenn will be back. I actually think he should come back. And maybe he's not the guy. And maybe Darren Muji, the GM and company, maybe they screw up all these picks. I actually think that the organization has been run very well this year, getting that war chest of picks where they can control whichever of the next two drafts they want. And for the Jets fans out there, did you watch Trinidad Chambliss last night? Did you watch Fernando Mendoza yesterday? Dante Moore yesterday? Did you watch Arch Manning on New Year's Eve? Or Jeremiah Smith on New Year's Eve? The Jets are going to have their chances to get whomever they want in the next two NFL drafts. I do think Aaron Glenn will return. We'll stay in the AFC East as the New England Patriots, 10.5-point favorites against the Miami Dolphins, 45.5 the total in that game. And the Patriots are going to play this game to win because they could still get the 1 seed and home field advantage. Unlikely. I think the Broncos will beat the Chargers, who are starting Trey Lance and make her dance. Lance and make her dance. The Broncos will probably win, but the Patriots need to try and win just in case to get the 1 seed and home field advantage. Now, I've been telling you for a little bit now that I think Mike McDaniel's going to stay, that he will remain the head coach. We want him to stay. Shout out to Rihanna. That Mike McDaniel is going to remain the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. There were a couple of reports over the holidays, over the last couple of days, that kind of had me question that thought process. And now I actually believe that McDaniel's going to be out at season's end. We first saw the rumor that McDaniel would be a candidate for the Browns head coaching job if the Browns fired Kevin Stefanski. And we'll get into Kevin Stefanski in a little bit. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, okay. And just so people know where stuff like that comes from, that's not the Browns giving that information out. That's like Mike McDaniel's camp is giving that. And I'm not insinuating they're making it up. Just that I think that's Mike McDaniel and his agents and his team preparing for him to lose his job. And maybe drum up interest in him for a new head coaching job. And then yesterday's bombshell, and I actually do think this qualifies as a bombshell, that the Dolphins will be retaining ESPN NFL analyst on Monday Night Football and Hall of Fame quarterback Troy Aikman to consult the team on its search for a new general manager. And if you'll remember, the Dolphins fired general manager Chris Grier following the Thursday night loss to the Baltimore Ravens earlier in the year. That tells me that Aikman's going to be consulting, that Mike McDaniel's gone. Because if Aikman's vetting the search, they're not going to hire a GM with the preconceived notion that you have to come in and work with McDaniel. They're hiring someone to be like the guy. Because you don't bring Aikman in otherwise. You bring in like a figurehead GM to work with the head coach. That's like how the NFL works. Mike McDaniel doesn't exactly strike me as a Troy Aikman guy. Troy Aikman's a boomer. Mike McDaniel's not. Just my opinion. I can be wrong. Just my opinion. My guess is, and I didn't think this last week, but these events that I've laid out have changed my mind. I think Mike McDaniel will be out as head coach of the Miami Dolphins. Speaking of Kevin Stefanski, his Browns, 7.5-point road dogs this weekend to Joe Burrow and the Bengals. Cincy is 7.5-point home favorite, total 44.5. And I'll just give you a betting opinion on this game. I think Cincinnati's going to win by 20. Bengals have got it going on right now. Much like Stella, Joe Burrow's got his groove back in a big way. Much like Shawn Michaels back in the day, he's got his smile back. He had lost his smile, and now he's got it back. And he didn't have to fake an injury like Shawn Michaels did. He was actually hurt when he lost his smile. So Joe Burrow's feeling better, even though he is taking failed shots at the organization every chance he gets. Now, just to say this, Zach Taylor's going to come back. I think Zach Taylor's getting another year. Do I think he should as Bengals head coach? Absolutely not. I think he's a terrible head coach. And the fact that, Joe Burrow goes out and they can't win, look at what Kyle Shanahan did with a million guys out, including Brock Purdy. Not that Purdy's Joe Burrow, but, good coaches are able to sustain losses and still be able to win games. Zach Taylor's not a good coach. I don't think he should come back, but he's going to. So I just to get that out of the way, I think Zach Taylor returns as Bengals head coach, and they look to reload next year around Joe Burrow. I am starting to believe, though, that Kevin Stefanski is going to be out of a job. Because in the same way, you got reports that the Browns would be interested in Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel. That obviously means that there would be a head coaching vacancy in Cleveland. And I believe that the Browns have touched base with the Dolphins, with Mike McDaniel and his team already. Where else does that report come from? We also got a report from ESPN's Jeremy Fowler that the Giants, my favorite football team, would be an ideal fit for Kevin Stefanski. Again, where do you all think that's coming from, our listeners and viewers? And I'm not trying to talk down to you and make it like you don't get it. I think you do understand where that stuff is coming from. This is Kevin Stefanski and his agents, right, and the team around him, and I'm not talking the Browns, his management team, probably know he's on thin ice. I'm sure they know that. The McDaniel report came out. I'm sure that's true. I'm sure that the Giants, I have no doubt that the Giants have spoken to, I don't know that for a fact. I'm not reporting that. But where do you think this stuff comes from? So if this is out, right, then Stefanski probably knows that at the very least his seat's very hot. And maybe the Browns are looking to just turn the page on all of this. See what they do with Deshaun Watson. See what happens with Shador. Have the 2 first-round picks, obviously theirs and Jacksonville's, and what they do at the quarterback position. If I had to guess right now, I believe that Kevin Stefanski will be out as the head coach of the Cleveland Browns. Just to get this on record, I am a New York Football Giants fan. My favorite team out of any of the teams I root for. And if you're new to the show, thank you very much. Follow me on all socials at the Costos, TheKostos, TheKostos on Twitter and Instagram. I like the Giants, the Yankees, the Knicks, and the Rangers. Those are my 4 teams. The Giants have always been my favorite team since I was a little kid. Always, right? I can't tell you how excited I would be for the Giants to hire Kevin Stefanski. A two-time, shout out to Diamond Dallas Page, bang, coach of the year. Not his fault he got saddled with Deshaun Watson, who can only operate out of a spread offense. It's not the offense that Stefanski wants to call. I think Stefanski's an awesome coach, and I think he is the perfect coach to come in and mentor Jackson Dart and take the Giants out of the sideshow role they've been in for the last decade and bring them back to some degree of prominence. Stefanski would be at the top of my wish list were he to become available to be the head coach of the New York Football Giants. And I do think, if and when the Browns move on from Stefanski, it is a mistake from a football perspective, but given everything that's happened with Watson, I guess you kind of can't blame the organization if they just want a clean break. I think the Bengals are going to lay it on them. I'm laying the points with Cincinnati on Sunday against Cleveland. Zach Taylor comes back for the Bengals. I think the Browns will dismiss Kevin Stefanski after the game. On the other side, we will get to the other NFL coaching situations that I think you, our listeners and viewers, need to be monitoring. And the most interesting one is in Las Vegas with Pete Carroll and the Raiders. We'll get to the Raiders, the Cardinals, and more on the other side. You bet on a Friday here on Westwood One Sports.
We'll be right back with You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports.
And Banks will take it at about the 5 for the Giants. Finds a gap, has some room, being chased. He's being chased by Carlson. He'll take it all the way. That is a touchdown. 95-yard kickoff return touchdown.
Now, back to You Better You Bet with Nick Costos on Westwood One Sports.
Friends of the show, Kevin Harlan with the call. I'm so mad that happened. It's a Giants fan. Giants needed to lose that game, and of course they win. What a bunch of idiots. Hire Kevin Stefanski if Stefanski gets fired, and all will be forgiven. If that happens, we'll see what the Giants end up doing at head coach. So the Raiders, that's the joke, the Raiders. We'll talk about Pete Carroll and his future in a second, but want to pay off this question from the YouTube chat from our friend Kevin Hilmers, who is a real one. He says, Nick, he's got Oregon, Ole Miss, and Miami. Great job by you, buddy. At double-digit futures numbers. In the betting market, should he let the big numbers ride? Difficult to hedge. His only liability is the favorite. Kevin, I think you know what my answer is going to be to this question. I think you made awesome bets. If it were me, I'd let it ride. Like, Indiana is the best team, and I think Indiana's probably going to win, but you have the other 3 teams at great numbers. If it were me, that's what I would do. But it's your money, so ultimately you've got to make that decision. If you'd like to hedge and try and win something, if Indiana wins, I personally would let it ride. I think Oregon could absolutely upset Indiana. And then if it is Trinidad Chambliss and Ole Miss in the national championship game, like Mendoza's great, and Mendoza won the Heisman, I think Chambliss is the best quarterback on the field if Ole Miss does play Indiana in the national championship game. So if you're in the YouTube chat and the Twitch chat, keep firing in the comments. Interactivity is going to be way more of what we're going to do on this show moving forward. And we will have a new YouTube channel coming up in the near future, a call line and a text line. The show's going to kick ass in the year of our Lord, 2026. All right. The Las Vegas Raiders. I cannot believe this point spread on Sunday. The Raiders are we'll do another joke. How bad are the Raiders? Bad enough that they're 5.5-point home underdogs to the zombie Kansas City Chiefs. Like, everyone on the team hurt. What the hell? The Chiefs, 5.5-point road favorites, total 36.5. Pete Carroll should be fired just for that. Just for that, he should be fired. Now, Andy Reid already said, he's coming back next year as Chiefs head coach. And he has the right. Won 3 Super Bowls. He's one of, objectively, and obviously, having Patrick Mahomes helps. He is one of the best coaches this century. And I know he started coaching the Eagles in 98. He's one of the best NFL head coaches of all time. He's a Hall of Famer. There's no question about it. And whether or not you think Mahomes won those, he's the most important, but it doesn't matter. He's the coach when they won. He deserves to do whatever he wants. If he wants to leave, he can leave. And if he wants to come back, he comes back. That's it. So Andy Reid's going to be back next year as head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs. As far as Pete Carroll goes, it's got to be it. Pete Carroll cannot come back. I've called him for years on this show, and look, he's a legendary coach. Won a Super Bowl with the Seahawks, national championships at USC. He's a legend, right? I'm not trying to disparage his career. I've called him the Carroll-saurus for a long time. You boomer, right? He wants to play 1980s football in the 2020s. The meteor's got to hit here, and we got to get rid of the dinosaurs. We got to move on from the Mesozoic era into this century. That's how this has to go. Pete Carroll was hired by the Raiders, and it's a terrible hire, and I thought the Raiders were going to be bad this year, and I said it. Although I did think that he would at least have the team be respectable. How could you not think that based on what he's done? They've been the opposite. They are not worthy of respect. They're a laughingstock. They're pathetic. And they're tanking by sitting down Brock Bowers and a healthy Max Crosby. They are tanking. A Pete Carroll team is tanking. You can't have this. And it would be one thing if the Raiders with Geno Smith and Pete Carroll were competitive this year and you could say, okay, let's run it back next year and maybe they could make the playoffs. And Carroll can be a bridge into whatever the next era is. There is no bridge. The thing got built and then fell apart immediately. The first person that tried to walk on it fell to his watery death, unfortunately. It's over. It's done. You can't have a coach in his 70s now about to oversee a massive rebuild where the team is tanking for the number 1 pick in the draft where they will select a quarterback. You got to get a younger coach in. I'm not an ageist. I just praised the Kyle Whittingham hire from Michigan. He's 66 years old. It's not an age thing. But if we've reached the point here where Pete Carroll should not be the one overseeing this rebuild with a rookie quarterback, when all he wants to do is boomer ball, run the football. That's not what this needs to be. Imagine like Trinidad Chambliss is going to run the Pete Carroll offense here. Fernando Mendoza is going to run the Pete Carroll offense. Like, that's it. So, Pete, like, here's your Rolex. He'll go to the Hall of Fame, and he deserves to go to the Hall of Fame one day. Just like you cannot bring him back. They have to dismiss Pete. Tom Brady's got to do the right thing here. I think he did the right thing this weekend. Spotted with Alex Earl. I don't know who she was, but now I'm familiar. Not bad from Tom Brady. Hey, Tom. Got to get a new head coach in here in Pete Carroll. Have a YouTube comment. How can Vegas and Brady move forward with Pete Carroll? There's no future. They won't. They're going to fire him. I don't know who the Raiders are going to hire, but whoever it is going to be better than Pete Carroll. I'll give you a minute here on the Arizona Cardinals, who don't really register nationally, but, I think they're going to fire their coach. This season has been a calamity for Jonathan Gannon in Arizona. And it's unfortunate in one sense, right? Because they've had a million injuries. You don't have Kyler, and Kyler's not the future quarterback for the team, no matter who the coach is. Walter Nolan's barely played, but he's been on the field. He's been great. The secondary's been ravaged by injuries. They've lost their top 3 running backs. Marvin Harrison's been in and out of the lineup. Offensive linemen have been hurt. Yes, they've been hit by the injury bug very hard. You can't let go of the rope like this and get embarrassed in every game and end the season potentially here on a 9-game losing streak at 3-14 in year 3. I feel bad to a degree for Jonathan Gannon because I feel like the deck that he got dealt this year was not a good one, but you got to do better. You have to. It's a results-oriented league. It's year 3. You're one of the worst teams in the league. That's it. Is it possible he comes back? Yeah. And could he win next year if they're healthier? Definitely. I'm not saying he's a bad coach. But what do I think's going to happen? I think he's gone. And I think that's the right move for Arizona. So this will be like Michael Bidwell, Cardinals owner. He's got the arrows of light and the hook shot. Fire one right at Calamity Gannon. See you later, buddy. Tears of the Kingdom, coming courtesy of Jonathan Gannon, Monty Ossenfort, who sounds like a Zelda villain, and the Arizona Cardinals. I do expect them to move on from Jonathan Gannon and Monty Ossenfort, the general manager. On the other side, we will be joined by former NFL and college football head coach Dave Wanstead. And we will talk to Wani about the Chicago Bears and whether or not he thinks they could beat the Packers if they play for a third time on Wild Card Weekend. I do think that'll be the matchup. And we'll get Coach's opinion on his Miami Hurricanes in the semifinals of the college football playoff. Former NFL and college football head coach Dave Wanstead joins me, Nick Costos, and you next here, You Better You Bet, on Westwood One Sports.
We'll be right back with You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports.
yards for a first down. 10 yards for a touchdown. Beck throws. Left side, Fletcher. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Touchdown! Miami! Carson Beck to Mark Fletcher. 12 yards, and Miami strikes first.
Now, back to You Better You Bet with Nick Costos and the crew. Presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Westwood One Sports, courtesy of the call on that highlight, as Miami on New Year's Eve beats Ohio State 24-14 to advance to the semifinal. They are favored against Ole Miss coming up next Thursday night in the Fiesta Bowl. The coach, Dave Wanstead, will join us in just a second, but we got to briefly tell you about our show sponsor, BetMGM, because BetMGM players will receive an NBA Odds Boost token. To use the token, add a wager made up of NBA bets to your bet slip and activate that token. If you win your wager that was made with the aforementioned token, you'll receive extra winnings and unrestricted bonus dollars. Download the BetMGM app, visit BetMGM.com. I will give you a couple NBA bets that I like for tonight at the end of the show. But before that, the coach, Dave Wanstead. 670 The Score in Chicago, Big Ten Network, NBC Sports Chicago, one of the nicest guys out there. Also, by the way, Super Bowl champion and national champion at the collegiate level as well with the Miami Hurricanes back in the day. Coach, Happy New Year. Thank you for joining me, Nick Costos here. You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports.
Hey, Nick, it's good to be back with you a little bit. Hey, congrats on the new deal you got, their new show and stuff, man. That's awesome. You do a great job, and happy for you. Really am. You'll be fantastic.
The check is in the mail. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
What did you eat, Coach, on New Year's Eve?
Oh man, what did I have on New Year's Eve? You know what? I was home here by myself. Okay. I went to Naples for 2 days. The kids were down there. Then I had to get back for some work here. So I was in town, and you know what? Now that it was nothing. I might have had leftovers, to be quite honest with you.
No nachos? You didn't have the nachos stacked up like usual?
You know what? I did have some chips and salsa to warm up the day, but that might have been at 2 o'clock, Nick. By the time we got to the evening, my wife's in Naples, so you know how it goes. I was scrounging through there, and whatever was left over, I was eating. I did have me a little Terry Bradshaw bourbon, though. I did have one of those.
Good for you. I had about 6 or 7 Surfsides. It was a wild night for young dad Nick Costos. That type of thing normally does not happen. So, Coach, I'd like to run through some of the big stories from the college football playoff quarters, and then we'll turn our attention to the NFL for a little bit here. Let's start with the Miami Hurricanes. And I said something last hour, and I think it's true. I think I'm kind of discounting Miami a little bit. Now, Miami was the better team, and Miami deserved to win. I feel like if they played again, Ohio State would beat them. I thought Ohio State with a terrible start to the game and got it going in the second half and a little too late. Do you think that's unfair for me? Am I not crediting Mario Cristobal, who I know you know, in Miami? Am I not crediting them? And what did you make of Miami's performance on New Year's Eve, beating Ohio State?
Well, you can be a little bit critical from past history with Mario Cristobal, but you cannot be critical about that talent. I mean, Miami is the most talented team in the playoffs from a standpoint of just raw talent and experience, in my opinion. And it was that way when the playoffs started. You know, I mean, again, they flopped around and lost a couple games during the season. They shouldn't have, Nick. But let me tell you something. I mean, they could have 2 of the first 10 players taken on the beat. They got those 2 defensive linemen are going to be first rounders. They got probably that right tackle they say arguably is going to be a first round offensive lineman drafted. The running backs this team is really talented. That's what Mario does. He was Saban's recruiting coordinator everywhere he's been. The recruiting has been his real deal over the coaching part of it. And it shows up. I mean, now, on Ohio State standpoint, I got to defend them a little bit because I know them real well from doing TV for the Big Ten every week. I mean, their offensive line, they don't have a senior note offensive line. People lose sight of the players that they graduated last year, Nick. I mean, they got I'm looking here now, they got a sophomore, freshman, and 2 juniors in that offensive line. Their starting quarterbacks are freshmen. Ohio State starting running back is Bo Jackson is a freshman. They are a young football team. So it did not surprise me. I disagree with you. I think Miami's the best team in the playoffs left, the most talented team left in the playoffs.
I did say also, like last hour, that I think the way Ohio State played against Indiana should have been a pretty clear signal on how this was going to go, at least in terms of the Miami defensive line being able to pressure Julian Sayin, which obviously they did. And we are expecting Reuben Bain to be a top pick coming up in the NFL draft. Like, Miami is stacked with talent. And, Coach, you said that you think Miami's the best team left standing, so it begs a follow-up question. Do you think Miami's going to win the national championship? And the next game's against Ole Miss, and I'm guessing you think they're going to beat Ole Miss. Ole Miss quarterback Trinidad Chambliss was unbelievable last night in the upset against Georgia. So do you think Miami's going to win? And if the answer is yes, and you think they're going to beat Ole Miss, how do they defend Trinidad Chambliss with how he looked last night when Ole Miss beat Georgia?
I want to make sure I'm clear on this. I said Miami is the most talented team in the
Fair
playoffs.
enough.
I think the best team is Indiana. And Indiana is the best team, in my opinion. Miami's the most talented. Miami, I think, beats Ole Miss in the next round. You know, the quarterback, you got to give him credit. Because I went back, I didn't know much about him. And I did some research when he was in Ferris State up there in Michigan. And this year, I think he's thrown 19 touchdowns and only maybe 6 interceptions, completing about 66% of his passes. So my point is that the numbers that he had during the season at Ole Miss support what he did last night. And the biggest thing is going to be contained. I don't know. I mean, Georgia let receivers get behind them for big plays. I mean, I think they had 4 big plays over 20 yards, 2 of them for touchdowns. That should not ever happen. And the second thing, Georgia did not do a very good job of containing them. And his athletic ability should not have been a surprise to anybody. And when you face a quarterback like that, the first thing you talk about with your defensive lineman and your whole defense is who is responsible for containing. We got to make this guy throw the ball on time. And that didn't happen either. So just a real collapse, in my opinion, on defense from Georgia's standpoint.
You better you bet on this Friday, Westwood One Sports. Nick Costos here with you. Our guest, Coach Dave Wanstead, on Twitter, at Coach Wanstead, former NFL and college football head coach, here on January 2nd in the year of our Lord 2026. Happy New Year to all of our listeners and viewers, and to the coach. Coach, just curious, you've watched Fernando Mendoza, and obviously you work for the Big Ten Network, so you've seen a lot of Fernando Mendoza this year. You watched Trinidad Chambliss last night. I am not. I talk on the radio and I talk on television for a living. I'm not like grinding the film. I'm not someone who's like watching all the college tape. I watched Trinidad Chambliss last night, though, and I'm thinking this guy looks like he could be the number 1 overall pick in the draft. Just from what you saw last night, do you think Chambliss has the type of pro upside that Fernando Mendoza has? And we don't know if Chambliss will declare how that's going to go, but do you see that type of pro upside in Chambliss that I'm guessing you see in Fernando Mendoza?
Well, I think you put Chambliss in the category with Moore, the kid from Oregon. And both those guys may have more upside, okay, than Fernando. But let me say this. If you are an NFL team that you can afford to have your quarterback, I think, sit and learn. I think both those guys would help themselves by coming back. Moore at Oregon and obviously Chambliss at Ole Miss. But the way it is in the NFL, one and done, they want to win now. You take Fernando and you could fax them, okay? If they still do fax, and you could fax him the playbook on his way to your facility, and he would know the playbook. He's going to be ready to go and win, help you win day one in the NFL. I think he's advanced. He's so smart. He's so mature. He's better athlete than what you think. I said that same thing about Drake May when he came out of North Carolina. I said, this kid is a better athlete than what you people are giving him credit for. I don't know if I don't think he might not be as good an athlete as Drake May, but he's the same type of guy. That's kind of how I see this thing. He is more tomorrow ready to help a team win. If you're going to build and you can afford to let him sit, then take one of the other guys. You might hit on more of an upside.
Love it. And if we have time, I'd love to spin that into the National Football League and a question about Black Monday here as it concerns Fernando Mendoza. But just, Coach, to wrap up the college football conversation, Indiana, Oregon next Friday night. I think that's the national championship game. And the winner of that game will win the national championship. Indiana, about a 3.5 or a 4-point favorite in that game. So betting market expects the Hoosiers to win. And Indiana is the betting favorite to win the national championship. Miami, a 2.5 or a 3-point favorite against Ole Miss next Thursday night. Who do you think wins next week in the semis? Who do you think ultimately wins the national championship?
I'm gonna go with Miami, and I'm gonna stay with Indiana. The points in that. I mean, Indiana was getting 7.5 points the first time they played. And for our listeners, they played them out in Oregon during the regular season, the Big Ten, and obviously Indiana won. Now Indiana, I think it's, would you say 4 points, 4.5? They're
3.5, 4. Yep.
3.5. Yeah, that's a big swing in my mind. 10, 11 points. But I do think that Indiana is more of a mature team. Both these teams are extremely well coached. Both these coaching staffs have assistants that have been with the head coach for years, so they all are on the same page. I like that about it. I just think that Indiana is a little bit more battle-tested. You look at the games that they had to win in the fourth quarter at Oregon, at Iowa, maybe Penn State. I don't have the list in front of me, but they have come from behind and they have closed out games and made plays, offense, defense, special teams when they had to. I give the edge to Indiana, and I'm taking Miami just because they're a more talented team, and it's going to be a real big challenge at Ole Miss to mentally get their football team emotionally ready to go play at the same level they did against Georgia on a short amount of time. In other words, these are young college kids. Can you imagine the scene and the pat on the backs that they're getting down there on campus? I can't. And how are they going to keep their heads together? You got the coaching staff, the running back coach, tight end coach, offensive line coach, and coordinator scheduled to go to LSU. And the college football portal starts today or tomorrow, this week. How the heck are these guys going to be doing game plans for somebody you don't know in Miami? Recruiting, it's a mess. It's a damn shame for these kids. It really is at Ole Miss.
And just like how messed up college football is, like Miami has players that entered the portal. They're in the semifinals in college football. That will be a story, obviously, as we head towards that game next week. Coach, final one. I actually don't. The college stuff has been so good. We have about 90 seconds for this one. If Indiana wins the national, even if Indiana doesn't win the national championship, but if they do, I mean, you have won championships at the highest level. If Indiana wins the title in year 2 for Curt Cignetti, how do you put into perspective what he will have accomplished in just 2 years at a doormat program that hasn't won anything in my entire lifetime or even sniffed it at Indiana? How will you put into perspective what Curt Cignetti has done? 90 seconds.
Well, I know his dad recruited me. I know the Cignetti family well. His brother, Frank, was my offensive coordinator at Pitt. So I think what Curt said after the game is the only way to put it in perspective. It'd make a great movie. But Google him and look what he did at Elon. Look what he did at George Madison. Within a year or two, the guy was in championship games. This is not new. This script is not new for Curt Cignetti and how he's handled things. And most of his coaches, his 2 coordinators, have been with him for that whole ride.
Is he the best college football coach of all time? And I know that Saban's and other coaches have won more, like Jimmy, obviously, who you were with at Miami. Is he the best coach ever if they win the national championship? 10 seconds for the answer.
Oh, I like him. I'm not going to say he's the best. He's one of the best. Build a statue for him in Bloomington, Indiana. There you go. He'll have a statue. What's that mean? Does that mean anything, Nick? I don't know nowadays.
I guess maybe I need to have a cat statue for him in Times Square if they win the national championship at Indiana. Coach, you're the best. We look forward to doing this throughout the NFL playoffs. I hope that we're cool to do that. I love having you. Happy New Year, my friend.
All right, same to you, Nick. Bye-bye.
Coach Wanstead joining us here on You Better You Bet. Like, Coach has worked with some great coaches. I don't know how you don't say Cignetti's the best if they win the title. And there are some great ones. Final hour, power hour coming up on the other side. All my bets for tonight in the world of sports, and we will preview all the big games in Week 18 in the National Football League, starting with the Bucs and the Panthers coming up tomorrow.
We'll be right back with You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports. Back to You Better You Bet with Nick Costos and the crew. Presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Bring it up, Kenny. Final hour. Power hour. You better you bet on Westwood One Sports. Nick Costos, our crew, and whoever the hell you are, I love you. The Power Hour and every hour here on You Better You Bet, brought to you by BetMGM. Make it legendary by downloading the BetMGM app and visiting BetMGM.com. Again, a very happy new year to all our listeners and viewers, and even to the haters and losers. Hope everyone has a healthy, wealthy, prosperous, and happy year of our Lord, 2026. In this final hour, Power Hour here on a phenomenal Football Friday, we will preview all the big games, Week 18 in the National Football League. That is coming up momentarily. The big storylines that you need to know about, and how I'm betting these games. We'll start in moments with the Buccaneers and the Panthers tomorrow, which should be an NFC South championship game, but alas, the Atlanta Falcons and the New Orleans Saints will have something to say about that coming up on Sunday. And to close the show, a little more than 40 minutes from now, all my bets for tonight in the world of sports. I got a couple bets in college basketball. I love, listen, I'm not going to make bets that I don't like. I really like these bets tonight in the NBA and college hoops. I'm excited to give them out and explain to you why I like them. That is coming up at the end of the show. Pretty college football heavy show today, coming off the college football playoff quarterfinals. First hour, all the games, starting with Ole Miss and the instant classic and the upset over Georgia last night. Trinidad Chambliss, QB1, crediting Sean McDonough for an unbelievable play-by-play call of the game. And Kirby Smart turning into Kirby Dumb in the closing moments, and really for the entire second half. Going for that 4th and 2 at his own 33, basically conceding the game when you lose. Ole Miss taking a 10-point lead, down 27-24, Kirby on tilt, and not running the clock all the way down at the end of the game, leaving 56 seconds on the clock for Trinidad Chambliss, who completes a 40-yarder to Stribley on a bad defensive call where you can't let the receiver get behind you. The receiver got behind them, and Carnero, who banged home a number of field goals last night for Ole Miss, makes the winner from 47, and Ole Miss advances to the semifinals. An unbelievable game. We talked about Indiana emasculating Alabama, why I think Kurt Signetti is Heisenberg, Walter White from Breaking Bad. He is the one who knocks. Unbelievable performance by Indiana, not just beating Kalen DeBoer and the Tide, but embarrassing Kalen DeBoer and Alabama in the granddaddy of them all. In the Rose Bowl, Oregon beat Texas Tech in a football game that happened. Did it really happen? I mean, I watched it. I won money on it. I guess it did. What a forgettable game that was. And Miami beating Ohio State, destroying the one future I had this whole season, which was just the Buckeyes. I would say it was always Ohio State, but I guess it wasn't. Ohio State goes home. Mario Cristobal, Carson Beck, Ruben Bain, Mark Fletcher, Malachi Toney in Miami advance to the semifinal. A 3-point favorite against Trinidad Chambliss, Pete Golding, and Ole Miss. Indiana, about a 3.5-point favorite, 4-point favorite against Oregon next Friday night in the Peach Bowl. And I think that game will decide the national championship, the winner of Indiana and Oregon. The YouTube chat is on fire today, and we appreciate that. And I know that we are still using the old network YouTube feed. We will have a new YouTube feed coming up in short order. We'll tweet that out. I'll talk about it on the air. But thank you very much to everybody in the YouTube chat and in the Twitch chat. Demetrius Nicolaitis, a fellow Greek, chiming in, saying he wishes the college football playoff was just 8 teams, but since it was a money grab, the NCAA needs to go to 16 teams. I agree with that. I'd be down with 24. I love games I love talking about big games. I love betting on big games. Give me more big games. And this Final Four in college football this year feels like a college basketball Final Four. And I love that for the sport. With Miami and Ole Miss and Oregon and Indiana. Like, you can have a Final Four that doesn't include Alabama, that doesn't include Georgia. Much to my chagrin, as someone who bet Ohio State to win the title, that doesn't include Ohio State. Like, it's okay. I think this is going to be an absolute blast. I think this is great for the sport and the long-term health of college football to get some new blood in there at the end of the year. I absolutely love this. So, Demetrius, I absolutely agree with you. Let's expand this son of a bitch to 16 teams in short order. I want more in the college football playoff. So thanks to everybody on YouTube. Thanks to everybody listening on the radio, on Sirius XM. If you're listening to this in podcast form after the fact, I love you as well. And you can hit me up on all socials at the Costos, TheKostos, as we get set to wrap week 1 here in our new time slot, 9 a.m. to noon Eastern, on the new network, Westwood One Sports. Okay. Week 18 in the National Football. Oh, yeah. We got some not so great games. My Giants against the Cowboys. Anyone really care? Probably not. Both teams eliminated from the playoffs. I'm hoping that the Giants get the best draft pick possible. We will see. We do have, though, some very, very meaningful games. A bunch of win and in games. Some divisions will be decided coming up this weekend. Can't wait for it. And it kicks off tomorrow in Tampa with the Bucs and the Panthers. Now, by virtue of Atlanta's stunning Monday Night Football upset from earlier in the week against the Los Angeles Rams, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers do not control their own destiny anymore. The Bucs need to win tomorrow against Carolina and have New Orleans upset Atlanta on Sunday on the road, and we'll get to why that may be a little more difficult than previously expected in a minute. But that's what Tampa needs. That's what Baker Mayfield needs. And Baker Mayfield does understand that this is going to be an uphill climb here for his Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I mean, for us to get in the playoffs, first and foremost, we have to win on Saturday. So that's the main focus. Can't control what happens on the game Sunday, but we can control how Saturday goes, how we prepare, how we come into it, and last home game.
Yes, that is true. That's all they can control. Perhaps Baker Mayfield has been saying the serenity prayer to himself, which I actually think is like, even if you're not religious, great thing to think about as we enter a new year. Like the serenity to accept the things you can't change, the courage to change the things you can, and probably most importantly, the wisdom to know the difference between the two things. I'm not trying to be like the stump to everyone for religion. I'm just saying, I think that's a good thought to have whether you're religious or not. So Baker knows, right? Like, Falcons, Saints, whatever happens is going to happen. They're not on the field. They got to take care of their own business coming up tomorrow. Betting market for the game at our show sponsor, BetMGM. Tampa, a 3-point home favorite, but the 3 is heavily juiced towards the Panthers. We've seen this number dip to 2.5 at points this week. The total is 43.5, but getting bet towards the over. We may end up closing there at 44. Baker Mayfield is off the injury report. He will start for Tampa. But the Bucs will not have star corner Jamel Dean in the game, which is bad news, obviously, for Tampa. And the Bucs, if I can quote, I'm going to check something here to make sure I don't screw this up. Yes, he died in 2017. I never want to say someone died and then they're alive. The late, great Tom Petty, who actually did the halftime show at Super Bowl 42, Giants-Patriots. I was at my buddy Sean Butler's apartment in Queens for that game. Sean is now the program director of Sirius XM NBA Radio. And we were outside smoking a cigarette, and I got down on the ground in Queens, New York, looking up at the sky, feeling like the Giants were going to lose, while Tom Petty was playing the halftime show. That's what I think about when I think of Tom Petty, just being honest with everybody. But as Tom Petty famously said, the Bucs are free! Free falling. I don't think he was talking about the 2025 Bucs. But they are. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, since think about things in these terms. Remember when the Dodgers won the World Series? Kind of a long time ago, right? When the Dodgers won the World Series? The Bucs have won one game since then. 1-7. They will finish under 500 no matter what happens in tomorrow's game. This is a once promising season that started white hot with all the late wins, the cardiac Bucks, and Baker Mayfield pulling it out of thin air. And he's was at one point, and we told you on this show always, and Femi was on top of this big time, Baker ain't winning MVP because the Bucks aren't going to win enough games. Even with us knowing that at the time, and look, we could have been wrong. Turns out we were right. I did not expect things to go off the rails like this for Tampa. And yes, Baker has not been healthy this entire season, but I mean, like, come on. Mike Evans hasn't been healthy. Godwin hasn't been healthy. The offensive line has kind of been in shambles at points, but still, like, this division, they're going to finish under 500. It's wild. It's wild. And I'm not saying the Bucks can't win tomorrow. They lost to Carolina a couple weeks ago on the road. They could easily, like, the Panthers are no great shakes. Like, Carolina's not a great team. The Bucks can win. There's no doubt. But it's one thing to go on a radio show or on a TV show and say, yeah, I like Tampa to win the game. But if we're going to talk about this from a betting perspective, and I think this is, even if you don't bet in the listening and viewing audience, I think this is a good way to think about things. You can think Tampa's going to win. Would you bet them? Because if the point spread closes 3, Tampa -3, in order to win your bet, you need Tampa to win by 4 or more. And do you think that's going to happen based on what the Bucks have done since October? You know, Halloween, long-ass time ago. It's now 2026. And I'm not here to tell you it can't happen. They're favored in the game. I'm not saying it can't happen. What I am saying is that I wouldn't bet on it. So maybe Tampa wins, maybe they win by 3, maybe they win by 20. This is a bet for me on the Carolina Panthers. And I talked about it earlier in the week. And I don't even think Carolina is very good. I would rather bet Carolina in the wild card round than Tampa, just because I think Carolina's upside. They've shown that they can hang with really good teams. They get blown out by good teams also, like they did last week against Seattle. But they beaten the Rams. They beat the Packers. They've had some big wins this year. I would rather bet on Carolina as a home dog in a wild card game than Tampa. And I would much rather bet Carolina in this game. Now, it will not be one of my favorite bets of the week, but you make me bet this game, I'm only betting the Carolina Panthers. And I actually do think the Panthers will win and render Sunday's game moot between the Falcons and the Saints as far as playoff stakes go in that game. But we actually that needs to be the next game we talk about here. You Bet or You Bet on this Friday. Nick Costos here with you on Westwood One Sports. Follow the show on Twitter at You Bet or You Bet. Follow me on all socials at the Costos, TheKostos. On Tuesday, after the Falcons beat the Rams on Monday Night Football, I came on these airwaves and I told you that one of my bets for this week was going to be, forget about the points. I think Tyler Shuck and the Saints will go into Atlanta and win the game. And Atlanta won't have a say in who wins the division, in knocking the Buccaneers out if the Falcons win and we get this convoluted tiebreaker scenario. The problem with that now, a couple days off, obviously, for the holiday, and this is something that's actually, like, very scary. Chris Olave has a blood clot in his lung, and he's not going to play in the game on Sunday, obviously, because, you know, not even if it were for the Super Bowl, Olave wouldn't play, but he's not going to play in a game that, like, it means nothing for the Saints, given that he has, you know, a blood clot in his lung. And the hope is that Chris Olave gets better. He is expected to make a full recovery per the team, and you would think that he'll be good to go and play starting next year, but, you know, who the hell knows with something like this? I will add this, and I don't say this to be crass or crude, but this is a sports show, right? So we can wish Chris Olave well, and we can understand that the most important thing is his health, and it's not even a question. But, you know, like, I love fantasy football, and I play a ton of dynasty fantasy football, and I have Chris Olave in a lot of leagues, and I love it. He's really good. Obviously, his health is most important, but this is a sports show, and we talk about sports. Would very much like Chris Olave, not just to be healthy for himself and his loved ones and for the Saints, but selfishly for me and my fantasy team. And I hope people understand that, and I want that to come across the right way. Health comes first. Also, I'd love for him to play because he's really fun and he helps our fantasy teams win championships. But he ain't going to play on Sunday. And it makes things very difficult for New Orleans. Because now, without Olave, sure, Juwan Johnson's been really good for New Orleans at the tight end position for Tyler Shuck, but now you're really kind of scraping the barrel at receiver, and not that Tyler Shuck, who's been phenomenal. And I actually think that people collectively are kind of sleeping on Tyler Shuck a little bit, in the media. And fans are sleeping on Tyler Shuck a little bit. Because the Saints have not been a national team this year, and they were expected to be bad, and they're not playing in high-profile games, and the schedule that they've been with, they're on a 4-game winning streak, but the teams they've beaten have not exactly been murderer's row. It doesn't matter when you play as well as he has who the competition is. Sure, if he plays against, the Texans, he's probably not going to look as good as a rookie, but he's still you can't be bad and light up bad teams, light up that ass the way he has. He's been really good. And the Saints' upside is to win this game outright. But without Chris Olave, I can't bet New Orleans. Now, I also don't really want to bet Atlanta because the Falcons could easily put up a stinker. This does kind of feel right. And if you're a Falcons fan, you can really appreciate this, where everyone's in on the Falcons now, and maybe Raheem Morris has built up enough. I don't think he should return, but maybe he's built up enough momentum where he returns as Falcons head coach. Doesn't it feel like a spot where the Falcons could step on the rake and lose this game in embarrassing fashion? Couldn't that happen? It's not impossible, right? As crazy as it sounds, I think if they win, I think 50-50 that Raheem's back. I said earlier in the week, and just to reiterate the points, that if the Falcons hire Matt Ryan, which was reported by Fox Sports' Jay Glazer, Ryan, an analyst for the NFL on CBS, if the Falcons hire Matt Ryan to some type of front office role, Terry Fontenot's out. The GM's going to lose his job. And I think that means Raheem Morris is out as well, although you never know with these sorts of things. If they end on this 4-game win streak and they beat their hated rival in the final game of the season, I'd say it's 50-50 Raheem's back. Maybe 51-49 no. If you asked me what I would do and what I think they should do, I think I know Raheem Morris is a very nice guy. I don't think he's a good head coach. Great defensive coordinator. Won a Super Bowl with the Rams. I don't think he's a good head coach. I think the Falcons should move on. I think they will, but I think that by the slimmest of margins. So I think the Falcons are more likely to win now with Olave out, but I wouldn't be shocked at all if the Saints won. So a bit of a lukewarm opinion for me on that game. I will likely not bet it coming up on Sunday. And that takes us now to Saturday night. Niners and the Seahawks in the Bay Area. NFC West Championship game. Amazing, by the way, right? To have an NFC West Championship game this season. That does not include the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams will rue the loss to Seattle and the loss to Atlanta over the last 2 weeks. NFC West Championship game, and the winner gets home field advantage throughout the NFC playoffs. Niners and the Seahawks in Santa Clara. And Super Bowl 60 will be played at Levi Stadium. So if the Niners win, obviously, and they go to the Super Bowl, they will be at home for that game. Earlier in the week, I told you, I like Seattle in this game. I bet Seattle earlier in the week. Seattle is now flipped to the favorite. San Francisco was a 1.5-point home favorite. Now Seattle, a 1.5-point favorite, and they're getting bet out, literally as we speak. This could go up to 2. Total has been fluctuating, but it was 49, then 47.5. Now we're at 48. So it looks like the market's going to settle over 47, but probably not as high as 49. That total is 48. There is some injury stuff that needs to be figured out on the San Francisco front and on the Seattle front as well. We think Charles Cross is going to miss their left tackle. For the Niners, future first ballot Hall of Fame left tackle Trent Williams, questionable. George Kittle is questionable, although he said he's going to play in the game, and I take him at his word. Ricky Pearsall, questionable as well for San Francisco. So this could be a game where Brock Purdy is down one or more of his weapons and his starting left tackle. Hashtag more shall be revealed today into tomorrow, obviously, for this game with the Niners and the Seahawks. I like Seattle. And the reason why I like the Seahawks is I do not trust this Niners defense. while acknowledging the Niners offense is #on one right now. And Kyle Shanahan, as Brock Purdy said after the Monday night win a couple weeks ago against Phillip Rivers and the Colts, Kyle Shanahan's in his bag. But the problem is the Niners defense is in a bag also. And it's a trash bag. It's horrendous. Got lit up last week by Caleb Williams and the Bears, and I think is going to get lit up by any offense with a pulse. And I don't even think it's their fault. Think about again, and I've said this a few times, but it bears repeating, and it's worth repeating. Think about the way we talk about the Green Bay Packers defense without Micah Parsons. Parsons gets hurt, and we just bury Green Bay. Can't win. Now, the Niners offense is better than the Packers offense, but still, the way we talk about the defense. The Niners defense lost Nick Bosa and Fred Warner, like first ballot Hall of Famers. And it's like, oh, no, it's all there. The defense could maybe be okay. Really? It can? Now, the thing that makes you nervous, if you like Seattle, and I already bet Seattle, is Sam Darnold, obviously. And can Sam Darnold, because I'll tell you what, man, or woman, I hope we have it was an equal opportunity show. If Sam Darnold lays a Humpty Dumpty size egg here against this defense, we got problems. And the Seahawks have big time problems entering the postseason. And there is a little bit of a parallel, right, with last year when the Lions defense was in shambles for Vikings at Lions in Sunday Night Football in the NFC North Championship game. Or it's an identical situation for Darnold, going on the road in a division championship game with home field advantage on the line. And Darnold was terrible in that game at Detroit. And the Lions defense was awful and got just sliced and diced by Jaden Daniels and bounced out of the playoffs in the divisional round in Detroit's first game. So there is some historical precedent for Darnold to fail in this spot. While I am not a Sam Darnold believer in terms of Darnold like winning a Super Bowl, I don't think that will happen. The way he played after the Shaheed punt return touchdown against the Rams at least gives me confidence that he could play well against a bad defense in this spot. Now, I can be wrong. It's Sam Darnold. And he sees ghosts. And he, maybe a little PP dribbles down the leg in a big spot. We've seen it happen before. I actually have more faith in the Seahawks offense and Clint Kubiak and Darnold and Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet and JSN than I do in Robert Saleh and the San Francisco 49ers defense. I do like Seattle to win. And I think Mike McDonald will have something. I'm not saying they're going to shut him down completely. But I think Mike McDonald will have something cooked up for this Niners offense. And remember back in week 1 when these two teams played, and I bet Seattle in the game and I lost, and it was really annoying because Seattle was the better team. And Purdy threw that touchdown pass in the sea of hands to Jake Tonjes. Seattle should have won that game. I think Seattle, as the kids would say, gets its lick back tomorrow night. The Seahawks win. The Seahawks cover. The Seahawks win the NFC West. And the Seattle Seahawks claim home field advantage throughout the NFC playoffs. Quick break. And on the other side on this phenomenal Football Friday, we will turn our attention to Sunday's games that matter in terms of the postseason picture in the National Football League. I'm going to tell you who's going to win, who's going to lose, and my projected matchups on Wild Card Weekend, along with projected point spreads and totals. That's all coming up next here on a Friday. You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM with Nick Costos on Westwood One Sports.
We'll be right back with You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports.
And you just got to be calm. You got to be calm in the storm. So that's my approach. And I feel like that's the team approach.
Now, back to You Better You Bet with Nick Costos on Westwood One Sports.
This is like a game of Fortnite. Storm's coming. Sorry. I love video games. Sunday night for Lamar Jackson and the Ravens on the road in Pittsburgh in the AFC North Championship game. And Lamar Jackson says he's going to play. Oh, baby. We'll preview that game coming up in a second. We'll preview all the games on Sunday that have playoff implications. I'm going to tell you who I think is going to win, if there's a bet to be made, and what I believe the matchups will be on Wild Card Weekend. And we have projected point spreads for those games as well. That's coming up in moments. We will close the show with all my bets for tonight in the world of sports. The YouTube chat, very active today. The Twitch chat, very active today. Again, as we move into next week and like in the weeks to come in January, we're going to have a call line, a text line, way more interactivity coming up on the show. Appreciate everybody that's with us today. If you'd like to chime in and have your voice be heard, multiple ways you can do that. Our friend William19 in the YouTube chat asking if Tyler Shuck or Teteroa McMillan will win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Tet is the favorite now in the market, minus 145 at BetMGM. Shuck, plus 140. Obviously, what's helping Teteroa McMillan's case here is Chris Olave being out for the Saints on Sunday, which lessens their ability to win the game, and Jamel Dean is out for Tampa, which makes, T-Mac more likely to have a nice game coming up on Saturday night. But, if you think New Orleans wins, and you think Tampa wins, and Tet doesn't have a good game, like that's how Shuck wins. If Shuck plays well, the Saints win, and the Bucs beat the Panthers, and T-Mac does not have a good game. So that's Teteroa McMillan's, Tyler Shuck, his path to winning. It's easier for Teteroa McMillan to win. He plays well and the Panthers win. I think it's probably done regardless of what Tyler Shuck does. So ask me what I think's more likely. I think Teteroa McMillan's going to win. If you had asked me that on Monday prior to Falcons-Rams, I probably would have told you Tyler Shuck. And prior to the Chris Olave blood clot in his lung, I would have said Tyler Shuck. But with the information we have now, if you made me bet, I would bet Teteroa McMillan, not Tyler Shuck, to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Thank you very much to William19 and everyone chiming in the YouTube chat. Still time for everybody to have your voice be heard. Type in a question, type in a comment. Mike Brown is monitoring it. He will give them to me here as the show moves along for the next half hour. Let's talk Ravens-Steelers. AFC North Championship game in game 272. If there were scriptwriters and they're not, they deserve a raise. The Baltimore Ravens, 3.5-point road favorites right now at Pittsburgh. Total in the game is 41. Lamar Jackson says he's going to play. Betting market says he's going to play with the Ravens more than a 3-point road favorite here. So that's looking good. No DK Metcalf for the Pittsburgh Steelers as he serves the second of his 2-game suspension for fighting with that idiot fan in Detroit. And yes, Metcalf has to control himself. Also, like, that fan is a grade A loser with a capital L. With a stupid backwards hat and his stupid hair. DK can't swing at him. That can't happen. But that fan sucks. Just saying. Like, that fan is the absolute worst. So no DK Metcalf. We don't know if TJ Watt's going to play in the game yet as he recovers from his lung issue that he had a little while ago. Aaron Rodgers is going to be good to go and play in this game for the Pittsburgh Steelers in what might be the final game of a legendary Hall of Fame career. And Rodgers had this to say earlier in the week.
See my career, I don't have a lot of stinkers back to back over the years. So it's the same mindset every week, same approach, just expect greatness. And when it doesn't happen, you don't shift up the plan. You just keep on going and trust the process.
Well, Aaron Rodgers can trust the process. He could do that. The problem, though, is that this is going to be like the Philadelphia 76ers process from back in the day. I don't think it's going to go very well. This is like the Sam Hinkie Philadelphia 76ers process. Because this process doesn't have DK Metcalf. And the Steelers' process over the course of the offseason was to surround Rodgers with 2 good running backs and three decent tight ends and 1 good wide receiver in Metcalf. And you saw last week, and Rodgers referenced it. I usually don't have back-to-back stinkers. The obvious implication there is that he had one already and that he doesn't think he'll have a second. He didn't have that stinker. And look, like, Obviously, he doesn't want to get sacked, just like in general, but didn't want Myles Garrett to blow up the game, and he's getting the ball out quick. He did that with the Jets also, when he was the Jets quarterback. And he did it at the end with Green Bay. That's the Aaron Rodgers offense. He doesn't have any receivers. You can run this offense that the Steelers have if you have DK Metcalf, if you have Devontae Adams, if you have Garrett Wilson. Do you have one really good receiver that can win in contested situations, that can win one-on-one down the field? Okay, like then you can do like the run game with Warren and Gainwell and the dink and the dunk with Jonnu Smith and Pat Freiermuth, and now Darnell Washington's out for the year, and he's 6'7", 8 foot what? I did the hand motion, sorry, for people that are watching on video. I couldn't help it. Like, you can run that offense if you've got a field stretcher. I've seen some people this week say, well, Calvin Austin's going to be back this week potentially for Pittsburgh, who's like 5'8". So am I. All good. He plays in the NFL, though, and I talk. But he is fast, and maybe he can be the field stretcher. Can we just be really honest with each other? Now, Calvin Austin could go for 107 and 2 touchdowns. I'm not saying Calvin Austin can't have a good game. He could get behind the defense a couple times, right? But just like, and MVS could do that also. Like, who knows? I think I would rather have than Calvin Austin, Stone Cold Steve Austin. I'd rather have Stone Cold Steve Austin out there. Maybe to give Marlon Humphrey or Kyle Hamilton the Stone Cold Stunner. Or like the Luthez Press before a play. Give me Stone Cold Steve Austin instead of Calvin Austin. What? The Texas Rattlesnake. What? Don't trust anybody. What? Austin 316 says. You know what Austin 316 says? Austin 316 says, if DK Metcalf gets suspended for the final 2 games of the regular season, the Steelers going 0-2. And that's the bottom line, because common sense, logic, and reason said so. I don't even like the Baltimore Ravens. And I'm not even just talking as a fan. What a miserable season it's been for them. Now it can end on the regular season on a good note. And I do think, and I said this earlier in the week, that the Ravens, way more than the Steelers, like Pittsburgh has no upside. I guess you can make the case that if they played the Texans, they could win a low-scoring game. But their upside ends there. Pittsburgh can't go to the Super Bowl. It's not possible. Not possible. Even with Metcalf. At least you could squint, and you can see a reality in a wide-open AFC where every team is flawed, where Bo Nix is likely to be the quarterback of the number 1 seed, and Drake May is likely to be the quarterback of the 2, and Trevor Lawrence is likely to be the quarterback of the 3. And I'm not trying to diminish them. I'm just saying we haven't seen it happen yet. Where if Lamar is the quarterback of the 4 seed, why can't they make a run? I'm not saying I think that they can, or let me rephrase that. I'm not saying I think they will, but you can't question the fact that they can, that the upside's there. If Lamar gets it together, defense plays a little better. They're the favorite coming into the year. And they find themselves in this situation thanks to Tyler Huntley and Derrick Henry last Saturday night at Lambeau, and then Myles Garrett and the stupid fan in Detroit, where the Steelers lose to the Browns last week. And now the Ravens can make it somehow, some way. And I think they're going to. And we can see how the Ravens look in this game. And then on Monday, here on You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports, we can talk about if Baltimore can win a playoff game, depending on how they look. And I reserve the right, and I'll say it right now, and I would encourage everyone to think this way as well. Maybe you think the Ravens are going to win the Super Bowl. Maybe you think that. Maybe you think they're one and done if they make the playoffs. Let's see what happens on Sunday night. Because this is a team, like Pittsburgh has a high floor and a low ceiling. The Ravens' floor is in the Earth's core, and the ceiling is basically like in outer space. They could be one of the worst teams or one of the best teams on any given Sunday, or Monday, or whenever games are played, including Christmas. I hate the Christmas games. So let's see what happens, and we'll reserve judgment on Baltimore if and when they get to the playoffs. I do think the Ravens are going to win. I don't know if I want to lay 3.5. I think I'd probably take the points with Pittsburgh just because I think it'll be a close Baltimore win. I don't know if Baltimore wins by margin, but I do think the Ravens will win. The Ravens' game plan needs to be pound the ball with Derrick Henry. Lamar keeps it out of harm's way. And if you need to punt, by God, as Jim Ross would say, you punt. If you need to punt, you punt. Because the Steelers are not going to be able to do anything on offense without Metcalf. The Ravens know exactly what's coming. The Steelers don't have like prime Shannon Sharp or Tony Gonzalez or prime Kelsey at tight ends. Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith are fine. They're not Hall of Famers. They know what Pittsburgh wants to do and Arthur Smith wants to do in the run game. They know what's coming. They know it. And there's no field stretcher. Unless you think Stone Cold Calvin Austin and MVS are going to get behind the defense and burn the Ravens defense. And if that happens, they should fire Zach Orr, the defensive coordinator, and John Harbaugh if they lose this game. No excuses for the Ravens. Go out there and win the game on Sunday night. And if they do, and I think they will, I think Mike Tomlin comes back. I think the seat gets a little hotter for Mike Tomlin. And I think that it will be the final game in the legendary Hall of Fame career of Aaron Rodgers. And if that's true, and I'm right, what I would say to you, the listener, and you, the viewer, whether or not you love Aaron Rodgers, or more likely, you dislike him, for whether it's his politics, his thoughts on vaccines, him as a teammate, I'm not here to try and change your mind. That's not what this is. I like him, but I'm not trying to change your mind. Whatever your personal feelings on Aaron Rodgers are, you cannot dispute and take away from him that he is one of like the 7 best quarterbacks of the last 50 years of the Super Bowl era. You can't take it away from him. And if this is going to be his last game, I hope that everybody is able to appreciate it from a football perspective at the very least. He is an all-time great. You bet on this Friday. Nick Costos here with you on Westwood One Sports. So I can give some bets at the end of the show for Sunday. And obviously I have 2 shows on Sunday, both solo shows. WFAN on Sunday morning at 8 a.m. and then the national edition of You Bet from 11 to 1. So if I don't give a bet for a game that you're interested in, you the listener, you the viewer, like on Sunday, we'll have all the information. I will give you all the thoughts. But I ran through the playoff predictor. And I put in all the teams that I think will win this weekend. And I believe I have this here somewhere in the 9 million tabs I have open. I think the Bears are going to beat the Lions. Are they going to cover the 3? Honestly, if it goes down to 2.5, I might bet Chicago against Detroit. I think the Bears are going to win. I think Seattle's going to win. I think the Rams are going to win. And I think the Rams will beat the Cardinals. And I think the Panthers, either by beating Tampa or the Falcons beating New Orleans, will win the NFC South. In the AFC, the Broncos will beat the Chargers and claim the 1 seed and home field advantage. No Justin Herbert in that game. Trey Lance and Maker Dan starts for the Chargers. I think the Patriots will beat the Dolphins and claim the 2. I think the Jaguars will claim the 3 seed by beating the Tennessee Titans, and they're getting bet out almost a full 2-touchdown favorite in that game against Tennessee. I think Houston will beat Riley Leonard and the Colts and claim the 5. The Bills will then be the 6. And the Baltimore Ravens, I think, will beat the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday night and be the 4 seed, which sets up these matchups on Wild Card Weekend. In the AFC, the 2 seed Patriots against the 7 seed Chargers, the 3 seed Jaguars against the 6 seed Bills, and the 4 seed Ravens against the 5 seed Texans. In the NFC, the 2 seed Bears against the 7 seed Packers, who are starting Clayton Tune this weekend. We'll see how that goes. Probably not well against Minnesota. So part 3, Bears-Packers. The 3 seed Eagles against the 6 seed Niners, if I'm right, and Seattle wins and gets the 1. And the 4 seed Panthers against the 5 seed Rams, which would just be like, if you're a Rams bettor or a Rams fan, that is Shangri-La for you. That is exactly what you want. There are domestic sports books right now that have these open, that have markets open. And it does not mean that you should go bet them, nor can you bet a lot of money on them. This is more just for conversation. And then we'll talk about what the actual lines are next week on the show. The Patriots are 3, -3 against the Chargers. The Bills, a 2-point road favorite at Jacksonville. The Ravens, 1.5-point home favorites against Houston. The Packers would be a small road favorite, at least to open against the Bears. And you can disagree with that. That's, I think, what it would be with Jordan Love back. The Eagles, a 2-point favorite at home against the 49ers. And the Rams, 9.5-point road favorites in Carolina. I think the bet that stands out to me the most, there would be 2. If we get there, and that's what it is. I would bet Buffalo and Jacksonville. And I would pay to see Jacksonville beat Josh Allen. I would pay to see it. So I would take the Bills. I would consider the Chargers if it went to 3.5 against the Patriots, with the Patriots not having a great pass rush. And I would definitely bet the Eagles laying less than 3 against the San Francisco 49ers. Want to sneak in a Twitch comment from our friend Reed Phillips Rad, who writes, the Chiefs are, quote, ethically tanking with starters going lightly and playing. The Raiders are unethically tanking, sending players home that can swing the game and purposely starting worse players. Reed, you're right. Also, if I were a Raiders fan, I would love it. Pride and poise, commitment to excellence. Just tank baby for the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. On the other side, give you a couple bets coming up for Week 18 in the NFL, and all my bets for tonight in the NBA and college basketball on this Friday on Westwood One Sports.
We'll be right back with You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports. Now, back to You Better You Bet with Nick Costos on Westwood One Sports.
Some thank yous to dole out before we wrap up the Phenomenal Football Friday edition of You Better You Bet with a bunch of bets for today. Easy for me to say. New year. Give me a break. All my bets for tonight and a couple bets for this weekend in the NFL in the world of sports. Thanks to our one wonderful guest, the coach Dave Wanstead, for joining us on the show. Our executive producer today, in for Bill Zimmerman, the great Tyler Morales, who I didn't ask, but I'm sure is pulling double duty as our technical director as well. Thank you very much, Tyler. Our engineer, awesome first week for him on the show. We love our friend Kenny Henderson, Downtown Mike Brown, and Dan Turner. I'm going to come up with a tag team name for you guys, and that'll be the bit. I just don't know what it's going to be yet. But thanks to Mike and thanks to Dan for holding it down and making me look good on the video side. John Lund follows me here on Westwood One Sports. But for now, let's drop the dope-ass beat and get to the bets. We want all our BetMGM players to receive an NBA Odds Boost token. To use the token, add a wager made up of NBA bets to your bet slip and activate the token. If you win the wager that was made with the token, you'll receive extra winnings and unrestricted bonus dollars. Download the BetMGM app and visit BetMGM.com. All right, I'm going to give you some bets for tonight in the NBA. Let's roll with it. Oh, the San Antonio Spurs are getting bet against right now. I wonder if anybody's out. I'm going to do a quick refresh here and let's see. Yes, Victor Wembanyama has officially been ruled out as expected. It was a bit of a scare the other night in the win against the Knicks on New Year's Eve, which the Knicks covered thanks to a late Jalen Brunson 3. I bet the Knicks that was awesome. But you know how we do this. Wemby's out, we bet the San Antonio Spurs. So let's see how low it goes. I'm going to bet the Spurs tonight in Indiana against the Pacers. I wasn't on the air, but I bet the Nuggets the other night against the Toronto. First game without Jokic. This is the second game without Jokic tonight. And Jonas Valanciunas, Jokic's backup, just got hurt. The Nuggets are the walking wounded. They are going to play the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cavs are 13.5-point favorites. I think the Cavs are going to win by 30 tonight. Give me the Cleveland Cavaliers laying it against the Denver Nuggets. Also, the Knicks are hosting the Atlanta Hawks. The Knicks are currently, let's see, is this game off the board? Tyler, try and find what the line of this game is. Trae Young is questionable. If Trae Young, listen to me here. If Trae Young plays, I know it's at the Garden, I'm betting the Knicks. If Trae Young misses, I'm betting the Hawks. The Hawks are way better without Trae Young on the court. That's been proven this season. And I'll bet Memphis as a dog on the road in Los Angeles against the Lakers. College basketball. We bet Louisville on Tuesday night on the road at Cal. They're on their West Coast swing. They covered. Tonight, I want to take the points with Stanford. Stanford plus 8.5 against Louisville. I'm going to lay Nebraska on the money line against Michigan State, minus 130. And just to say this, because I think it's crazy, Michigan, the number one team in college hoops, is a 21.5-point favorite against 24th-ranked USC. I'm not betting the game. I'm just saying I think that's wild. And I'll give you a two-team teaser to wrap up the bets here and wrap up the Friday edition of the show. The Cincinnati Bengals down to minus 1.5 against the Browns, and the Minnesota Vikings down against Clayton Tune and the Green Bay Packers. A Bengals-Vikings two-team teaser, I think, is a winner coming up for Week 18 in the National Football League. Thank you to everybody for listening and watching to Week 1 of us here. You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports. I'll talk to everybody on Sunday and back here in these airwaves on Monday. Until then, I'm Nick Costos wishing you minimal sweats, winning bets, and a very happy, healthy, and safe New Year.
That was You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.